Good Tuesday morning. You're listening to Gary and Matt here on 1620 The Zone. I'm Matt McMaster, joined by Jimmy Chavez. No Gary Sharp today. He will be joining us periodically throughout the week as his and yours and everybody's Omaha Mavericks are in the NCAA tournament in Providence, Rhode Island, taking on the St. John's Red Storms. Instead, I'm joined today by everybody's favorite, everybody's new. Well, you're everybody's new favorite fill-in. I mean, I look up one day, you're on the Unsportsmanlike Conduct show. I hear the other day you got asked to do the Connor Happer show. The new fill-in, the overall. What would we rank them in terms of relievers here, Jimmy? Historically, I feel like you're a little bit of a Jesse Chavez right now. Former Texas Ranger, former Chicago Cub.
I would just say Caleb's coming in from the bullpen firing heat.
I'm about to be sent back down for designated for assignment.
The Josh Hader, if you will, of 1620 The Zone, Caleb Henry, joins us today.
Spot start.
Husker Max.
So you're like
director?
Wedman in Little Big League?
Yeah.
Should have started you all year, then start you in the playoff game.
We're like when we take Greinke and we put him in the bullpen, or we put Garrett Cole in the bullpen for Game 7 in 2019, and you don't pitch him. You just don't use him.
Still bitter.
Yeah, we're gonna put. Man, I feel like a Bill Self impersonation would probably be similar to a AJ Hinch impersonation. I feel like they just look like two men who talk the same.
Oh, Garrett's a stud.
Oh, Garrett. We're gonna put Garrett in the pen. We're not gonna take him out though. Baseball.
And the ball stuck.
Baseball season
baseball
is here again. You can catch it all on WGN as the Chicago Cubs are taking on the LA Dodgers.
Good on you for saying that.
Tokyo Dome, as we currently, if you're watching on the stream right now, you will see periodically we will all peer our heads up at the TV because we have
there's sports,
regular season baseball, and then it will
on a morning show
promptly be followed by preseason baseball, and then once again followed up by regular season baseball.
That's so dumb.
It is so dumb. It doesn't matter. I get to watch the Cubbies play ball today, and everybody gets to watch their Omaha basketball team play basketball tomorrow, in 2 days. Thursday. I bet.
I know it all runs together.
I mean,
it's just everyday sport.
Well, so much of the season had talked about Dayton, and then it was like, let's skip Dayton.
Yeah, nobody's going to Dayton.
Well, let's not skip Dayton because today we are playing
Matt likes
basketball.
Dayton.
I do like Dayton. Dayton's a great.
Dayton's
a nice little town. I have family on Dayton. We have two games going on in Dayton. We have the 16-16 play-in, and then we have the North Carolina Tar Heels, who absolutely should not be in the NCAA tournament, taking on the
Hard disagree.
Okay, go ahead. Give it to me. Why do you disagree that North Carolina shouldn't be in the NCAA tournament? This is not how this show was supposed to start. But
usually how it goes.
That is such a bold statement. Why?
I was with you on Sunday.
Okay.
And then the West Virginia governor decided to open his mouth.
There you go.
That's it.
It's out of petty. It's not out of.
No, there's no metrics that say it. Now, West Virginia has 13 losses. So that's 13 opportunities you had to not lose a game to be on the bubble. You put yourself in that position. Cool.
Shut up.
But
you're sounding like the chairman talking about Indiana. That's they missed their opportunity.
The chairman who got $100,000 bonus for North Carolina making the tournament. That guy, Bubba Cunningham.
But he wasn't. Hey guys, he was not in the room though. He wasn't in the room, guys. His team got in. He's the chairman. He's the athletic director of North Carolina. But hey, he didn't influence us at all. It's not as if he's going to dinner with us or breaking bread with us or talking to us or becoming friends with us or anything like that.
Yeah.
He wasn't in the room at all.
I'm all in, though, on North Carolina being in the field simply because of West Virginia's reaction. Simply because the politicians. That's where it goes wrong for me. No. It goes wrong for me right away because of the politicians.
It's an act. It's the politician trying to make a statement. They're just trying. They're not actually going to get West Virginia into the tournament.
No, they're not, and they know they're not. He's trying to score political points.
Exactly. We are supporting our West Virginia Mountaineers. It's a big joke. It's a whole lot of nothing.
No, he said he's going to get their AG to launch an investigation, and what's he going to do that with? West Virginia tax dollars in one of the worst-run states with one of the worst education systems.
I just flip it on to Coyle,
and we'll laugh. They're not going to.
This is where it's dumb, and you have to sue for everything because your sports team didn't get in. You're not hosed that much. You had opportunities to not be on the bubble.
Because it's a participation ribbon society. This is what happens 30 years later when everybody wins.
West Virginia did get hosed.
Right, Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, they did.
North Carolina.
If they don't like it, win more games.
North Carolina has beaten 2 teams in the field. One of the teams is American, who would not be in the NCAA.
That's a conference.
Aren't they all American?
Well, I mean, the American University. My apologies, Caleb Henry. Jeez. The American
Damn
University,
Libyans beat West Virginia.
Who isn't a tournament team unless they win their conference, and they beat UCLA in December before they were broken, and then they were broken, and now they're then they were really unbroken, and now they're kind of just meh, but they're a 7.
Then they saw the Statue of Liberty for the 8th time.
Well, then they have 12 games to go ahead and win and get more quad 1 victories, and they blew every single one of them after that.
Yep.
And then you couple in the fact that, hey, man, they've gone on this heater. They've done a really good job of, rallying together and putting themselves with a 22-13 record to get in the tournament. They beat nobody. They beat a bunch of tomato cans in the ACC who are terrible, who aren't going to be in the tournament. And then we gave them some participation trophy because they were competitive with a non-Cooper Flag Duke basketball team, which, by the way, if you watch that game, which I had the honor of doing, they weren't even competitive. It wasn't a competitive game until Duke started missing every single shot down the stretch. And granted to them, they made a run, and then they absolutely choked it away with a lane violation, which just goes to kind of show you what their season has been, in a nutshell, essentially.
That lane violation needs more investigation
sure.
than the NCAA selection committee.
To me, you look at
because of where, did you see where the point spread was?
With the point spread, I know what the point spread was because I bet on that game. It was -7. And so if North Carolina, which they did make the free throw, so if that lane violation didn't happen, you would have gone into overtime. And you would have hoped that Duke went on a run because I had some moolah on it. And unfortunately, I was correct in thinking Duke would win the game. I was incorrect in thinking they would win by more than 7 points. That's neither here nor there. Look, I get what you're saying.
It looked super intentional. The lane violation didn't look good.
Actually, Jimmy, have you seen this before? You've been around a lot of basketball.
I am old.
The Duke guy, I think he faked him. Like he tried to do that. Like he put his hand on him to get him to react like that.
It's called a deke.
Yeah, no, I know what it's called, Caleb. I'm just saying I haven't really seen them do that in late. Like the ball wasn't even close to being shot yet. And the Duke guy did that, and he got him. I just haven't seen anybody fake a guy off sides on a free throw line before.
He hit him with the hard count on the free throw.
He did. Green team. That's what he did. That's exactly what he did. I know what you're saying in terms of the West Virginia, legislator. It's a little bit over the top, and you're kind of.
It makes me not feel bad for them. I don't feel good for North Carolina being
West
in, but
Virginia. It's not the athletic department.
I don't care.
Doing the investigation.
Just go to Morgantown Brewery, have 3 beers and a burger. You'll be fine.
It's whatever. It's stupid. To me, it's a non-story. It's a non-factor. You roll your eyes at it, whatever.
Go
West Virginia's not in.
Some Italian food.
You feel bad for D-Rock because that team actually battled through a lot this year, with Tucker DeVries, one of their best players, being out in December. And they still were able to rattle off top 10 wins, beat a good Iowa State team, have multiple Q1s and multiple Q2s.
They won in Allen Fieldhouse, usually where officials do not let you do that.
Where when they were, down the stretch, were they questionable? Did they kind of lose games they shouldn't have and it put themselves in this precarious situation? Absolutely. But they have more quad 1 and quad 2 wins than Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and Xavier, who are just 3 other teams who are in, 2 of which played in the SEC, and I think they have more than Georgia as well. So that's a 3rd SEC team, and those 3 SEC teams are firmly in the tournament.
Nebraska has more quad 1 wins than
they
North
also
Carolina.
Okay,
I know there's the losses and all that, but
I added Georgia, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma, who are all 9 seeds there and 10 seeds who weren't even on the bubble. So you can even argue that in some respects their resume was better than them. Regardless of that fact, they won't be dancing. And it also comes down to, Caleb, you didn't get in. Stop moaning about it.
There's just win more.
Yeah, when the decision's done, the decision's done.
You're right. You're right in that. Like, what are we doing? This isn't going to get reversed just because you're moaning and pouting. And sending out statements from the athletic department.
No, I agree with in the immediate after fact with the AD put out the graphic of all the accomplishments.
Yeah. It was, by the way, one hell of a graphic.
And they didn't put that together on the fly. That was put together ahead of time.
Oh, you think so?
They prepped that. They absolutely prepped that.
I have it bookmarked.
But they put that out right away. I agree with that. Come out and say, we're disappointed in this decision. Absolutely, do that. Tell the governor to kind of stay out of it, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, helicopter parent, you're not making me look good.
I
didn't get my medal, Dad. Can you sit this one out?
See? Participation ribbon. What? We don't keep score. Everyone had fun. You know when I have fun? Winning. Don't like it, win more.
It's just one of those things, too, where it's not as if, though, like, and I was talking about this with Jacob Bigelow, right?
Love Biggs.
Yeah, America's man.
Bigelow has been at a watch party for the NCAA tournament.
Where the bubble burst?
For a selection show.
That went awry.
That a team doesn't get in.
This is awkward.
Everybody's sitting there, people come, they're excited, and then all of a sudden, oh, no. You're playing in the NIT, buddy. You're not going to the NCAA tournament. And it is a really awkward, really disappointing,
a lot of people's girlfriends
demoralizing athletic department instant, if you will, right? And so the emotion that comes from that, especially a team that in 111 brackets from 111 people who are considered to be quote unquote experts in doing this stuff, who literally we have one of them who comes up here every Friday, who spends a lot of time looking at analytics and data and trying to figure out who's going to be where. You're talking about a team that every single one of those dudes had them in the tournament. There was no, they weren't bringing in the mac and cheese into the room thinking, this may or may not go well. They were ready for a celebration. They were ready. They were ready to party. It wasn't a doubt in their mind, in anybody's mind, honestly, that they were going to be in the tournament. That happens to you. There's a shock factor to it, for sure.
Why is it that we have a committee made up of current athletic directors who are balancing what's happening on their campus?
Doesn't make sense.
They're balancing those budgets. They're balancing coaching contracts. They're balancing where your teams are over the course of the year. They're answering questions from fans. They've got stadium projects. They're worrying about what's happening in Congress with the House settlement. They're worrying what's the next step in the NCAA. And then they're going to go pick the tournament field. Why don't you have some of these people who do this for a living? Take 10 of them.
I know.
Pay them $10,000 each. I don't care. The NCAA can find it.
Do you think Bubba Cunningham is watching Baylor versus West Virginia at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday in February?
He doesn't know anything about High Point.
He doesn't know about Allen Huss. He's a casual. We have a bunch of casuals.
Bubba Cunningham first learned about Drake when he was watching the Oscars.
And I think you also have a good point in the regard that we are in a time in college sports where athletic directors and just department officials in general have so much to do now. They have so much adapting. I mean, look at what Troy Gannon is constantly going through and how Matt Rule consistently talks about how that's a guy who, one of his best aspects is that he's adapting and things are consistently changing. And I think he made a comment one time that he's always on the phone. He's always getting calls. He's always doing
That's a 24/7 job.
You look at the Minnesota athletic director, right? He was in Indy for the Big Ten tournament, flies to Minnesota, fires his coach, then flies back to Indy. There's a lot of things that are going on in their lives that
because the Minnesota one's on the selection committee too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just it's one of those things where, man, you're right. Who wouldn't drop what they're doing and get paid $150,000 of, hey, you're just going to watch college basketball games all day, all night. You're going to sit there. You're going to decide who's in, who's out. You're going to use these metrics. You're going to favor it this way. For them to have an obvious rooting interest, within one of the more sacred committees, and not only just college sports, but sports in general, is just baffling. And which is why you get these certain mistakes that you get, like North Carolina being in the tournament over a team who clearly is more deserving, like West Virginia. God darn it.
I think all we're doing right now is
We have a dumb button. It's okay if you let one slip.
I think all we're doing is advocating for our guy Tim to make a lot more money.
Oh yeah,
during March Madness.
Oh yeah,
or ahead of March Madness.
Absolutely.
Which I have to say, when we talked with Tim Kruger, I brought up the Ohio Valley Conference and the Southern Illinois Edwardsville Cougars, and what did they do? They beat SEMO in the championship, and they are dancing against Houston.
They are dancing.
They're not even in Dayton. I love it.
No,
they helped push Omaha off of the 16 line.
The funniest thing here with what the bracket looks like is that there wasn't even mistakes just within, who made it or who not. I mean, there was some major mistakes made,
like multiple seed lines
made, and in particular in the 8 and 9 section. Okay, so let's go to this first one here. Like, we'll get to Louisville and Creighton because that by far is the most egregious. And I
saw something saying that people are pretty sure the committee got confused between Memphis and Louisville. Like, if you just flip those two,
it makes a little bit more sense.
You make Louisville a 5 and you drop Memphis to an 8. It's like, oh, the bracket's fine.
Heading into the conference tournaments, Louisville was the number 1 6 seed. Okay, they were the top 6 seed according to Bracket Matrix in the country. Okay, they end up going to the ACC Conference Championship. They don't beat Duke without Cooper Flagg. So if you want to, jip them for that, whatever. I just want to remind everybody that Duke is really, really good despite not having Cooper Flagg. They still have 4 guys on that team that will probably end up getting drafted.
They go from really, really good to elite.
When Cooper Flagg gets joined. But then they end up being not just an 8 seed. They end up being the lowest 8 seed, the 4th 8 seed, because they are seeded against the top seed in the entire bracket, the Auburn Tigers. Meanwhile, and on top of Louisville.
Meanwhile, Louisville is number 10 in the latest AP Top 25.
There you go.
Which means they should like if you go off of where those are and you extrapolate it over 4 seeds, they should be
36.
They should be a 3 seed.
Yes. But they're the 36th best team according to this bracket. And I don't think anybody in this top bracket or top quad of the South region is happy because Auburn has to play 1 or 2 very good teams in Creighton or Louisville in the round of 32.
That pod which is awful.
Which is unfair. And then Louisville has to play Creighton. And let me tell you something right now. I know people have said some things about Creighton and people have gotten on me for certain things that I said. Let me just get this out of the ether. Creighton's a damn good basketball team.
Yes.
Okay. And Creighton, when they have all the pieces playing together, are a Sweet 16 Elite 8 caliber team. There is no doubt about it. When Stephen Ashworth is at his best, when Ryan Kalkbrenner is at his best, and then you have this conglomerate of Jason Green, Jackson McAndrew, Isaac Trout, Fedor Zugic, missing Frederick King doesn't play as much. You go down the line. Like, when they have those guys playing good basketball together, they are a really, really, really good team. The problem is, and I know that everybody who's listening to this has watched a lot of Creighton basketball, they just haven't been able to put it together consistently, week in and week out. You have weeks where Jackson McAndrew isn't scoring more than double digits a game, where he, is just not being able to see the ball go through the hoop. And you have weeks, and the Dodgers have taken a 3-1 lead. You have weeks where McAndrew is flamethrower, hitting threes, spreading the court, looking incredible. You can kind of go down the line. Fedor had to take some time to get used to the Creighton offense after only being granted eligibility to start in December. He's been able to come on a little bit. Hopefully he'll be okay after injuring his ankle against St. John's in the Big East championship game. But it's a team that, has consistently plays really, really well against, not good teams. Creighton this year is just really not going to lose to teams they shouldn't lose to. And when they play the top teams in their conference incredibly close every time they play them, St. John's, Marquette, UConn. This one, though, against Louisville is a tough matchup.
Well, in Creighton, by the way, that same AP poll, Creighton, where the votes line up, they're tied for 30th. So extrapolate that out, an 8 seed.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a team, Creighton, which I thought should have been an 8 seed anyway.
I don't understand.
So Creighton underseeded, Louisville egregiously underseeded, and now it's one of the best 8-9 games you're ever going to see.
It probably, you can make the argument that it's probably the best game just pound for pound in terms of.
But it's a Sweet 16 game.
I mean, it's up. It's a game that could be played in the Sweet 16.
That's what it is.
Like
it's a Sweet 16
that
game.
Was their first draw,
and your reward for winning it is Auburn.
And so
I know one seeds are no longer undefeated against 16s, but your reward in the second round is Auburn.
Creighton is going to take a lot of three-pointers. So is Louisville. Louisville is in the top 20 in the nation in three-point attempts. They're going to spread the floor. Chucky Hepburn is absolutely dangerous on the offensive end when it comes to distributing the basketball. I've watched a couple of Louisville games this year, and it seems like you peer your head up to the screen and there's a Chucky Hepburn assist compilation. I mean, it is
almost 6 a game.
What Pat Kelsey has done with this Louisville team to turn them around this quickly from being at the bottom of the ACC and a joke amongst the country to being in the tournament and being underseeded majorly, drastically, is quite the accomplishment. And I'm really worried about the matchup that's going to be occurring in Lexington, Kentucky between Stephen Ashworth and Chucky Hepburn. Chucky is the ACC Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep.
The guy's a freak. He's got an insane motor. He's go. I think a lot of people know that from watching him in high school, watching him in Wisconsin. He's relentless on both ends of the floor. He's the ultimate floor general, but also a great shot maker and will hound you. And when I look at Stephen Ashworth and I look at the games that he's played as of late, it's just very clear to me that he's kind of worn out. I mean, this team, especially after the Pop Isaacs injury, has relied a ton on him. I would argue
4 days off is nice.
It's nice, but that's a good point. But at this point, let me read you this. Stephen Ashworth, I'm just gonna read these numbers. His last minutes per game, right? 37 minutes a game, 36 minutes a game, 39 minutes a game. By the way, that was back to back days. Okay.
Yeah, Big East.
Like that's the Big East tournament. Then you got 38 minutes, 35 minutes, 36 minutes, 39 minutes, 40, 38, 32, 40, 40, 32, 40, 33, 27 against DePaul. Nice rest.
Sounds like
40,
you're reading the high temperatures.
37, 40, 39, 39, 39, 36, 39, 34, 38. Like that is so much basketball.
That's cold.
That is ridiculous. And
he's only like 2 years younger than me.
This isn't. Okay,
and you're no spring chicken.
Yeah.
Like this is a guy who, and it's not as if he's just running around like Tony Snell for 36 minutes, not doing anything.
Nice pull.
This is hard basketball. This is, you have the ball in your hands. You're handing it off. You are running around. You are trying to get open. And I think that as the season's gone on, he went 10 of 43 or 10 of 42 in the Big East tournament. Okay. 3 of 16, 4 of 7, 3 of 19. Like the shot, and especially towards the latter end of the year, outside of the Butler game, outside of the first half of the Butler game, just has not been there. And so I worry drastically, greatly, when a team is able to put an elite defender and kind of hound Stephen Ashworth. I think that's just a really, really bad draw and a bad matchup for the Blue Jays. Now, this team can absolutely shoot their way out of it, and they have one of the best players in the country, and Ryan Kalkbrenner, in the paint. So, this still is a good team. But that matchup in general is, if we're being honest, in terms of like the one-on-ones that you could have drawn, in terms of on your main ball handler, it's by far one of the worst.
Yeah, it's extremely tough. Now, the Cardinals, as a program, have not been in the tournament since 2019. But they only have one non-transfer on the roster. It's a completely redone roster under Pat Kelsey.
Yes.
You've got Hadley, who helped Colorado to the Sweet 16 last year. There's NCAA tournament experience. Terrence Edwards, Sun Belt Conference of the Year at James Madison a year ago. And, of course, Chucky Hepburn. Like those are your three-headed monster for Louisville. But Pat Kelsey has never won an NCAA tournament game. Yeah, worked his way up to Louisville, but 0-4 in the tournament with Winthrop and Charleston.
Yeah, but I mean, you're talking about a guy who the Winthrop and Charleston were 13 and 14 seeds.
Cool.
I don't think that's a measurement.
But he worked his way up. He used those jobs to launch himself into the Louisville job.
Yeah, but I don't think you can say because of Winthrop and Charleston, when you are consistently a bottom seed playing some of the best teams in the country in those 4 tournaments, and say, well, he didn't win a tournament game, he's not going to be able to win a tournament game, or that works against
Shaka
him at
Smart got
Louisville.
better jobs because he won in the tournament as a lower seed.
Yeah, but this isn't a conversation of does Pat Kelsey deserve his job or not. Pat Kelsey has.
I'm saying he doesn't have experience winning in March.
That's fine. I don't think.
I'm saying
that's not a factor.
It's a razor thin
He's a
portion.
really good coach.
No,
he's gotten a team
fine.
that won 8 games last year into the tournament. Like we said before, they should be a much lower seed. They've been playing really good basketball in the ACC all season long. Sure, if you want to play the game of Greg McDermott has way more experience than Pat Kelsey,
and that's what I'm looking at.
Fine.
Where can you find things that give Creighton fans, who I've heard do nothing but complain for the last 48 hours, that there's going to be a road game in the first round of the NCAA tournament? I get it. No, I get it. It is a valid thing to be upset about.
By the way, I just want to say right now, Auburn's complaining about that.
Auburn should have more of a gripe about that.
Is way
Creighton
more
should
PO'd about that.
But if you're looking at things that are in Creighton's favor, it is the lack of NCAA tournament winning experience from the coaching staff. It's the lack of multiple years of continuity with the roster that Louisville has. It doesn't mean Louisville can't go on a run and beat Creighton, beat Auburn.
You say Louisville.
Why?
I just think I know that people down there in Kentucky, it's Louisville. It's Louisville. And I like it when Midwestern people abide by those rules.
I've always called it Louisville.
They'll tell you it's Louisville.
It ain't Louisville. It ain't Louis.
How do you spell that?
Louisville.
How do you spell that?
It ain't Louisville.
Tennessee Volunteers play in Knoxville. Starkville.
No, you have good points there, and I will say this: Rain Smith is Louisville's top 3-point shooter. He is currently a questionable for this game at this point. I don't know if he is fully out. I can look right here very quickly, but Louisville is a 3-point shooting team. They're taking 28 3-point shots a game. Not having Smith in the lineup definitely is something that we'll have to keep an eye on. He's missed the past 4 games due to an ankle injury. And so when you have your top guy who is, a big part of your identity on the offensive end, that is something that is really, really big for Creighton, and something that they could potentially take advantage of. But I think you're right. Greg McDermott is an incredible coach, and Creighton, without a doubt, has the coaching advantage when it comes to these two teams playing, which is definitely something they're going to need. I think that Creighton definitely has the advantage on the inside, and this is something that they're going to have, basically throughout the postseason, because Ryan Kalkbrenner is so damn good. But when you look at the rest of the team, this really comes down to who are the other contributors if Kalkbrenner is being shut down in the paint, which has happened from time to time this year, and if Asherworth isn't being able to hit his shots, which has happened more and more as the season has gone on, which is why you've seen, this team being able to be incredibly competitive, but on the back of who? On the back of Jason Green, on the back of really good shooting from Jackson McAndrew, and on the back of just incredible clutch shooting and clutch plays from Fedor Zugic. And so this is a team where ever since Pop Isaac has gone down, they've definitely been more on the thin side of what do they have on the roster in terms of depth. But at the same time, man, when this Creighton team gets going and starts hitting shots, there's anyone they can beat. Let's move to the other side of the bracket. I'm pretty sure they're on the absolute opposite sides, if I'm not. No, well, Creighton's all the way at the top. Omaha, all the way at the bottom. They'll be taking on our media darling, St. John's Red Storm. St. John's, Caleb, is a really weird team to me. I'll tell you why. They're a really weird team because traditionally, everything that they do wrong should lead to them losing games. Okay? They are not good at free throw shooting. They are not good at 3-point shooting. We live in this day and age of basketball, of analytics, and where in order for you to win games, or team strategies just straight up is, hey, we're going to shoot a lot of threes. We are going to make a lot of threes, and we are going to get to the free throw line. And when we get to the free throw line, we are going to make our free throws. Yeah. That is literally how teams operate. That's how teams play offense. And yet this St. John's team does not do any of that. But the funny thing is that their best offense is their defense. They are the number one defense rated in Ken Palm this season, and their transition offense is absolutely incredible. And you look at these kind of trends, right, from a NCAA perspective. In the last 4 years, no team that was a 1 or 2 seed that was ranked outside of the top 25 to begin the year has made the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
In fact, none of those teams in the history of the tournament have ever made the Final Four. If you want to get even more into the, NCAA tournament trends, you have your very famous Ken Palm. The last 22 NCAA tournament champions were top 40 in offense and top 25 in defense. While being top 25 in defense, St. John's is like 70th in offensive efficiency. It's a team, though, that is 30-4, and they are playing incredible offense right now. I mean, they've scored consistently over 75-ish points in their last about 10 contests in the Big East. And it just is a team that wears you out. But when it comes to Omaha, and I kind of touched on it yesterday, but we'll get more, deeper into the weeds in this regard. Like, they're a really balanced roster. It's a really, really balanced team.
Yeah.
You have Lance Waddles, who can shoot the lights out. You have Tony Osborne, who can shoot the lights out. You have a dog defensively in Jashawn Glover. You have an incredible floor general in J.J. White, who also can go off for 30 at any given point in time. You also have two incredibly long wings in Cameron Thomas and Markel Sutton, who, can on the outside match the length of St. John's, which St. John's hasn't really experienced that much. And then you have two guys in the middle, in Isaac Anaconde and Josh Strait, who, rebounding is the lifeblood of St. John's. I mean, they are an incredibly good rebounding team. Omaha's going to need those two guys to play one of their best games of the season, of their lives. But I think it's going to be, we'll talk about other matchups like later in the show. I think this game's going to be a lot closer than people think. We're going to have my board for the NCAA tournament. They will be on my board. Like, plus 19.5 is a spread that I will take. Just because I think that this Omaha team, man, they're playing with some juice. They're playing with some fire. They love to play basketball. They're playing their best ball of the year at the right time. They love to play for one another. They love to play for their coach, who's done an incredible job over on, 60th and Dodge. Like, this is a team. There's just something in the air. There's just something in the water with this Mavericks team. Am I saying that they're going to win and they're going to beat St. John's? No. I think St. John's is an incredible basketball team. But I'm really excited for this game.
Well, there are two things that I think are going Omaha's way. Number one is you can make a phone call across town and get a decent scouting report.
That's a great point.
There are not many times you get that with an immediate scouting report within a week of playing each other.
I'm sure Jim Flannery is talking to Amy Williams right now about the Illinois Illini.
Exactly. Like, that's one of the things when you build up that fraternity of coaches.
And Greg McDermott at his own press conference saying, "Hey, congratulations to Omaha and Coach Chris Crutchfield." But I mean, it's one of those advantages for sure.
But you're also going to Omaha has been playing basically elimination basketball for the last month.
Yes.
Because you needed to put yourself in a position in case St. Thomas won the conference tournament, and then you took care of business in the conference tournament anyway. You've been playing elimination basketball. And now you're doing it on a bigger stage.
They've been playing it with their backs against the wall for a little bit. And, you are right to the point where St. John's has kind of known that they're in the tournament for quite a while. But if we're talking about teams that have a lot of juice, the Red Storm definitely is one of those teams. All righty. Hey, we're going to go from talking about the NCAA tournament to a tournament that doesn't matter. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Gary and Matt here on 1620 The Zone. Baseball season is upon us as my Chicago Cubs are kicking and throwing the ball around the yard as they're currently down 3-1 to the LA Dodgers. It makes me want to puke. Fortunately,
don't do that. We've had someone do this in the studio. We don't need that to start our day.
Fortunately, I'm hoping I won't end up like Tracy Morgan on the New York Knicks sideline.
I saw that
last night.
Wow.
That caused a 10-minute delay.
Don't buy the chicken strips.
So the Cardinals are going to be half game up after today? Is that what's going to happen?
Yes.
Don't even need to play and can already ahead of the Cubs.
Damn. Do you see Tracy Morgan throw up on the sideline of the New York Knicks game yesterday?
I saw a still image and I scrolled so quickly.
It was one of those
a still image, popularly known as a picture,
where it was quite disgusting. It was a bad looking deal. He could not stand. He could not walk. We're talking about a guy who's had health issues. He was bleeding from the nose as well. So I will.
Damn, and throwing up.
That's a no for me.
Yeah, I will refrain from making too many jokes because we're actually hoping that a legend of comedy will be okay. But at the same time, hopefully we will not all end up like Tracy Morgan when we watch the Nebraska Cornhusker basketball team take on the Arizona State.
We won't because we've got like 3 weeks.
Devils. So you're going to say because we won't be watching.
Well, I think
America won't.
Something's going around. Everybody's getting sick nowadays, and it's not like the cold or the flu. Like everybody's getting a really bad bug. Like I have multiple friends.
Didn't people say this about 5.5 years ago?
I don't know.
I just feel weird.
Stop.
This one actually looks worse because people are actually like, it's not just you can't taste your.
Oh, look at that. We lost Caleb.
Yeah, bad time to sneeze. Jeez.
They are. The stomach bug is going around, but I'll tell you a bug that isn't going around, and that's the crown fever. Is I think that anyone. I'm on fire
done,
today,
kid.
by the
Well
way.
done.
I am learning. It's almost as if I've been doing radio under Gary Sharp for the last 4.5 or 3.5 months.
Not literally. That'd be an HR issue.
Regardless of that, does anybody care? And is anybody going to watch? And is this going to be something that wouldn't you get? There's a part of me that thinks that I am going to get even more mad if this basketball team ends up winning this godforsaken tournament. Wouldn't you disagree?
Well, yeah, I do disagree.
I like because it'd be really, really frustrating if the team came out and played super, super hard and looked really, really good and looked like a damn tournament team. Because I would be like, man, where was this at the end of the year?
After 3 weeks of rest, after you just talked about how tired potentially Stephen Ashworth is.
I know, but at the same time, it's just like you don't understand. You're a big basketball fan, and I get it, and I understand you really, really like the team, and you just want to see the team get wins.
I'm excited, not just for Nebraska. I'm going to be watching basketball that whole week. You talk about bowl season and watching a lot of like bad football.
I smell what you're cooking, Caleb.
Here's the thing, though. There is a little bit of a difference, though, when you're talking about football bowl games, because when we watch Nebraska football, and I'll just use this as an example because it's something that anybody can get. When you watch that team play in the Pinstripe Bowl, you saw Willis McGahee, right? You saw Donovan Jones. You saw Vincent Shavers. You saw Caleb Benning. You saw Heinrich Harburg and Dylan Raiola and Emmett Johnson. You saw guys who were going to be on this team next season. And those games, especially for McGahee and Shavers and, Benning and Donovan, it gave you a little bit of hope for next year that, hey, these are going to be contributors on the team that could take big strides, that could end up playing well for us. One or two players are going to be on the Nebraska Cornhusker basketball team next season that are on this roster this season.
Maybe you get more run for Kevin Griffith.
Yeah, like what is the benefit there of watching these? Like,
well, it's one
that doesn't exist for this.
The giant difference between sports is that in football, you're not going to have 50% of your roster leaving unless you are Colorado and you just hired Deion Sanders.
Sure,
so that's one part there. I wish it didn't coincide with where the transfer portal is, because there's going to be a lot of work that Fred Hoiberg needs to do.
Sure.
But I'm excited for this because you look at the brands that are there, and it's going to be on TV all week, 4 games for the first 2 days.
Sure.
Like, I'm excited for that. In that there's going to be basketball, because we will have watched 2 weekends of the NCAA tournament.
I'm just talking from a Nebraska basketball perspective. I'm not going to deny the fact that, yes, if there is basketball on, I'm going to turn on the TV, and I'm glad there's going to be competition on. You won't get any pushback from me there. But I do think there would be, if this team ends up playing really, really good basketball, I'm not going to act as if I wouldn't be cheering for them or hoping that they would play well. It's my team. I like to see my team win. At the same time, there definitely is some potential for sour grapes, considering the fact that this is a team that had, talk about North Carolina and all the opportunity they had to solidify their resume to get into the tournament. Nebraska had ample opportunity to do that.
Multiple weeks to do it.
And if they come out and they look incredible, it's hard for me to convince myself that I'm going to be so joyful and happy and, oh my God, this is great, because I feel like part of me is going to be like, damn, this team should have been playing 2 weeks ago. This team should have been in a round one game. This team should have been competing to get their first NCAA tournament win.
Even if you're not bringing a majority of your big contributors back next year, it's still a springboard into the offseason. I still think it's something that can build you momentum right at the same time as the transfer portal. And it's a good chance for those guys to make some money.
Yeah,
There's an incentive.
Maybe a springboard for the coaching staff and some confidence for the coaching staff, which maybe you could argue after this frustrating season they need. But just from a player perspective, when you don't have as many guys coming back, I don't think that effect is as macro or as big as you think. At the same time, a lot of people are saying, I don't care. We'll see what happens when the day comes and they play Bobby Hurley in Arizona State. I think there might be a little bit more interest than we think. At the same time, it could be a well of frustration watching this team play again. Hey, don't go anywhere. We're talking a lot of basketball. Basketball's first hour. We're moving a little bit more football, then we'll hit back on the tournament. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. this is the ultimate, like, I don't know how many people who really, like, at least my age, okay, and I'm speaking on behalf of me, know this song, like, through and through. Oh, my God, you love it. But it comes up on a jukebox or it comes up at a bar.
People know it.
And you're like, oh, I vaguely know this song. I vaguely know it's a banger. I vaguely know that I'm going to start, like, Irish jigging to, like, a rock song.
This hit me so much. Like, as soon as it started, I went, yep, in my dad's 1997 F-150 listening to
Carnival 9.
1015 in central Nebraska.
Time and place.
God,
Rock.
I love those radio stations.
1997 was a fun time to be in Nebraska. I've been told.
Yeah.
I've always been.
I was Peyton Manning for Halloween that year.
Nice. That the year that Halloween got canceled? No. That was when my wife was a kid. I was like 91.
When did Halloween get canceled? What do you mean Halloween
Back
got
in the
canceled?
old days, Matt, it used to snow up here earlier than it does now. And so I believe it was 91, she said, they got an ice storm and a big snowstorm, and they had to cancel Halloween, at least for that night, so that they can allow for weather to improve.
Wow.
Now we get spoiled a lot of times with 60-degree days on Halloween. Not that we
insane.
Or you
complain.
just all go to the mall.
Yeah.
When I was back in Chicago,
Also
I
popular back then.
I was working weekends, and so the weekdays were essentially like, those were my weekends, right? Those are the days where I got to, like, sleep a lot, have a beer or two. And one of my favorite days, period, was just handing out candy on Halloween, drinking a bunch of IPAs. I had a couple buddies come over.
And you have a couple
we were
too
cracking
many.
them. No,
Handing out beers instead
yeah.
of candy.
No, we were handing out beers to dads. We saw dads
I love those
around,
places.
walking around with coolers, and we'd be like, "Hey, boys, you want a beer?" And they'd, like, come on over. It was like they came up to the door. They were like, "Trick or treat, trick or treat."
It's fun. We had we did that this last Halloween.
Passing out candy at Halloween is an incredibly underrated activity, I think, for adults.
I grabbed a 6-pack from the
yeah.
Hy-Vee Spirit section and had that in the old Jeep wagon while pushed my daughter around.
The day after Halloween and the day after the Super Bowl. Those are the 2 days.
Walked around
where
the old
everybody
neighborhood.
Needs off to be hungover. God, I hate that the Cubs. I'm ready to be hurt again when it comes to the Cubs, and the fact that they, like,
There's a dating metaphor in there somewhere.
Losing, but no, that's a Michael Scott quote. Just like, don't look bad on, don't commit so many errors on day one of the season. Like, don't be this team that is just absolutely abysmal in the field, and they weren't that great last year. Get out. Warning check.
Well, hey, if it's going to look bad, and this is really for any sport, bad. You think about, like, Nebraska in the Aer Lingus playing in Dublin. If it's going to look bad, don't do it before everyone else plays and everyone is looking at you.
And everybody else is watching. I'm going to be honest with you right now.
Did you see what that guy called?
I don't know how many people outside of Dodgers fans, Japanese baseball fans, and Cubs fans really woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch this game.
Because my Instagram feed, now granted, there are a lot of Cubs fans. They're all watching right now in bed.
Well, you know that.
Baseball sickos, excited.
Well, look, baseball season is here. Basketball season is at its peak. And now we're going to be talking about football because, you know what? It's 7 o'clock.
We're contractually obligated.
We are contractually obligated to talk about football. And you know that it's a non-in-season football conversation when we're talking about spring games. But something happened yesterday, which was actually curious.
There was actually something interesting happened.
Yes, there was actually.
We don't have to make this up.
No, this is not like a roundabout maze way of, like, how can we get the pigskin on our show? Like,
how do we talk about football today?
This wasn't like the meeting of the minds where, like, hey, how can we talk about football in March? A headline came across the ticker for me and all three of us, frankly, that caught our eye from one of our favorite coaches in all the land, everybody's favorite coach, everybody's favorite uncle, Deion Sanders, who, I'm going to be honest with you.
I'll take Uncle Deion.
I find myself
coach, just
saying,
as a friend.
I know the guy is a lot. I know he's a little crazy. I know he's about him. I know he's about, the look good, the play good, the feel good, they pay good. I know it's all about that. I find myself saying, he's got a point a little bit more often than I thought. I got myself saying,
you're coming around.
He's taking the right angle on this.
Must be the money.
Don't care if he has a point. He's at Colorado.
See, There
what
are
it
some
is.
people like that, though. There are
That's
some
what it is.
people where it
No,
don't matter.
I know what you're saying, though. I know what you're saying.
Nonsense.
Yesterday, so this is a quote from an ESPN article. Deion Sanders said, "I would actually like to play the spring game against another team in the spring. That's why I'm trying to do right now." Sanders said Monday after announcing that the Buffalo spring game at Folsom Field on April 19th would be televised. "I would like to style it like the pros," he said. "I'd like to go against someone in practice for a few days, and then you have the spring game. I think the public would be satisfied with that tremendously. I think that's a tremendous idea. I've told those personnel who should understand that it's a tremendous idea." It sounds, by the way, when you say tremendous idea over and over and over again, it sounds like our president is saying that quote.
Well, he's using
huge football
it's a
program.
tremendous idea.
The
He's
best.
using tremendous the way Matt Rule uses elite.
Yeah. Well, PJ Fleck uses it a lot.
Everyone's got that word.
Look, we are going. I feel like every time I talk to you, Caleb, we always have this conversation about college football veering more into the NFL, becoming NFL.
Of course.
And, you know, I understand when Matt Rule came out and said, "Hey, we're not playing the spring game because of tampering," I cringed a little bit. And the reason why I cringed is you don't have to tell us that's the reason. You can just say, "Hey, we have 105 players. We had two very key injuries last year during our spring game with Demetrius Bell and Bly Hill, two guys that Nebraska football anticipated that they were going to be really good." I'll tell you something right now. When it came to chatter last year during spring, Demetrius Bell was a wide receiver that I kept hearing over and over again from people within that building, that he was going to be someone that they really thought was going to make an impact. And
Bly Hill was high up there.
Exactly. And that's a guy that still came back, and that's a guy they're still high on. But, you know, when that injury happened, I think it definitely affected the outlook of whether or not doing a spring game was necessarily, especially now that you have less guys on your roster. But I just cringed at the putting it out into the open that other teams tampering with your players is a main reason as to why you're not playing the spring game. But I do think, though, that this is a really good idea from Deion, because you lean into more of the NFL idea. You lean in more to the NFL light, which is where we are going on this path. And I do think that, look, do you know how you get better at football? Playing football, right? And there's a reason why these NFL teams, the best players in the world, these best teams in the world, are doing these joint spring training practices together, because, you know, I know it's a cliche, but iron sharpens iron. Okay, that is the thing. And when you can have it sometimes can be difficult, you know, and we can talk about this when we have Matt Verzal on Friday, and sometimes, and, you know, it's way easier to be competitive with another guy that's not on your team. It's real easy to find that motivation, to find that fire, to find that passion, to go up against someone that you're not sharing a locker room with and absolutely attack, right? And I think that with Colorado, you know, having this idea, and then Syracuse's head coach, Fran Brown, tweeted out, "Hey, we'll come to Colorado for 3 days and we'll do this." I think it's a really good idea that a lot of teams could look into, that there is a benefit to improving your team and getting your roster better. And yeah, would you prefer the idea to come from maybe Steve Sarkisian or Dan Lanning or someone who doesn't coach for Colorado? Sure. But I do think this is something that not just Nebraska, all teams have to look into, and kind of diving head first into the adaptation of what is NFL football and college football.
Here's the part where I think it starts to fall apart.
Okay.
In that, if you, depending on the size of program that you bring in, your players are now around all of those coaches and all of those other players. The tampering position can still exist.
Sure.
If that's the true reason.
Yeah.
If that's the true reason. The part that I think you could build something on this, and this is something that, as you said, we'll talk with him on Friday, but talking with Matt about the JUCOs and the NAIAs, and basically you have your feeder team.
Yeah.
Because right now, supposedly the way the NCAA is going, that those years aren't going to count. You could do that with like the University of Nebraska and Nebraska Wesleyan.
Sure.
You could.
I push back on that a little bit, just because, and this is no offense to Wesleyan, but the competition is not equal there, right? You would need to bring in a team, in my opinion, that could actually give you some fits, that could actually challenge you, that could actually really piss some guys off that, hey,
but
should
you're
be
not going to
beating
do
this
that
guy.
because why would you do that and risk the injury for it?
Well, you risk
for a game
injury,
that doesn't count.
Wait. You risk injury in practice, though. Every time you step onto that practice field, you're going 100%. And at least I hope Nebraska
why increase
football is
the
going
odds
to it.
against somebody else that you have less control over?
But you have injuries in practice throughout the spring anyway. I think that when we're just talking about spring practices, right? And if you're adding another level of competition, there absolutely is a benefit to that. I don't think that falls into the category of injury, right? Because now Dion did mention that, hey, we'll play a game against them. We'll play the actual spring game against them. I don't know if I necessarily...
As a fan, I love that. As a fan, I absolutely love that because you see it with...
that's the part where I'm a little bit off.
Like Nebraska volleyball is going to have 2 spring matches. They're going to kick the crap out of Kansas, then they're going to kick the crap out of South Dakota State.
They have before and before.
And so I only wanted to bring that up just for you, Jimmy.
Oh no, I saw it in person when I was in school. But
you're going to have that. You've got soccer has exhibitions, softball plays different things you have all these other sports
to it. We're talking about sports that are way less physical than football. That just because Nebraska volleyball is playing
they're
a
not
couple
tackling
extra spring games. They're not tackling, they're not hitting, they're not doing any of that. There's not really every time you step out into a volleyball court or a softball field, there is another opportunity for you to get injured. But the bell curve doesn't go as high as it does with football.
Which is why I'm saying, as a fan, I love this. As someone who's listened to Matt Rule, as someone who's listened to a lot of these other coaches in the wake of Matt Rule saying there's not going to be a spring game and the other coaches coming out and saying we're not doing a spring game.
Sure.
They're not going to play another team either. And they'll come out and say they have less control over other teams' players and going through those practice sessions and then potentially playing a game.
But this is the conversation though of adaptation, because this is what this transitions to. Because if other teams start taking this model and doing this and inviting other teams to practice, and Nebraska refuses to do that, they essentially fall behind the 8 ball.
What level of opponent are you going to invite?
But wait, I don't want to get there yet. 1 second. Let me finish this point. If other teams start to do this, and other teams start to invite different teams from conferences to have multiple day practices, and then maybe not transition into doing a spring game with them, and Nebraska football decides, no, we're not going to do that. Okay, this is where I get into the problem of, is Matt Rule trying to adapt, or is Matt Rule does he just want to be different? Does he just want to be the trailblazer, right? Because does Matt Rule really want to, move the program forward or move college football forward just on his own, or is he willing to go with other people? Because we've seen he's been on the forefront of doing some different things, right? Of just coming out and talking about NIL dollars and how much you're going to pay for a quarterback and tampering in the spring game.
Yeah, he likes to talk. Yeah.
And he likes to do those things. And I give him credit with the hiring of Pat Stewart. That was a really good example of someone else did that before he did that, right? And then he decided to follow along in that regard and say, okay, hey, if North Carolina is going to have a general manager, if Stanford is going to have a general manager, I think that as Nebraska, we need to adapt with that and be a GM. This is an idea about the spring game that totally goes against what Matt Rule has been banging on the table for. And I'm curious as to see if this becomes an actual trend, which I think it should, and which I think it will. Does Nebraska follow along with that, even though they're not necessarily on the front lines of doing it?
So you said, let me ask this.
Go ahead.
Should Nebraska follow along and do this if it goes down that path?
Absolutely.
Here's the only thing that matters, though. Here's whether Nebraska does.
I think Nebraska should do this. Period.
I don't think they should. And either way, whether they do or don't, all that matters is their record in the fall. If everyone else in the NCAA does this, if every other power conference team does this and Nebraska doesn't, but Nebraska goes 10-2 in the fall, then who cares what they did in the spring? If everyone but Nebraska does this and Nebraska goes 3-9, then it's going to be Nebraska should have done this.
Wouldn't this?
So ultimately, either way, it doesn't matter what they did in the spring.
No, I disagree, because you get better in the spring. Why have spring then? Why have spring if it doesn't matter in the fall? Why even practice right now if it doesn't matter in the fall? This is prime time for you to have all these practices and develop into better football
practicing
players.
matters. Playing another team doesn't matter.
If you're playing another team and the competition is amped up, that means that you're running faster. That means that you're playing better players.
Then play a 12-game schedule in the spring.
Then you're more motivated. Well, then you get into injuries. Then you get into actual injuries. Then you get into that's a ridiculous.
So what's the difference between 1 and 12?
What do you mean? What's the difference between 1 and 12? There's a massive difference between 1 and 12.
There's a chance to do it in any one of those games.
You're just saying stupid things to piss me off.
No, I'm saying correct things, and you're interpreting them stupidly.
No, that's just a crazy. What do you mean? What is the difference between playing 1 game and 12 games? There's a massive difference.
You said you get better if you're playing, so why not just keep playing?
A three day.
It's the AAU mindset. There's a practice. You don't have to play a game.
There's a 3-day training camp where another team that's a Power 5 program that comes in that you're not going to play forever. They come in and you. Iron sharpens iron, and you add that motivation, and you add that competition, guys are going to get better. There's a reason why NFL teams continue, why they do this every single training camp, because there's an added benefit to those reps and those high-intensity reps. I want to go to the comments right now. Sith Destroyer writes in on the Twitch chat. Thank you for listening, Sith Destroyer. He goes, love you, Matt, but nowhere did Matt say canceling the spring game was due to tampering. That comes from a clickbait on 3 graphic. He did talk about, and he said in an interview, multiple times that, hey, we had one of the most televised spring games. It was nationally televised on the Big Ten Network, and we had guys who weren't playing in the fall who were getting calls about, joining other teams. And so, maybe he didn't come out and say directly, hey, it's because of tampering. But that's exactly what
the graphic took it a step further.
But that's exactly
but that's
exactly
the insinuation that Matt Rule was making.
That's exactly what that is.
Yes.
I appreciate you, Sith, correcting me. Captain says TV networks would be drooling all over who gets broadcasted. Absolutely. If I'm someone at CBS or NBC or the Big Ten Network or anywhere, and I'm hearing that Deion and the Colorado Buffaloes are considering of playing a legitimate, competitive spring game against another team, oh my God. And people would tune in, especially if it was a novelty. And then you couple that onto the fact that if more teams start to follow along, you're going to get more TV networks, more people watching, more people interested. There's a snowball effect. So I think it's a great combo by Captain. Definitely a TV network win yesterday.
Oh yeah, media people would love it.
Look, the fact that Deion, this is one of those things where maybe Deion was throwing it pie in the sky, but the fact that Fran Brown of Syracuse, who's a very respected coach, came back around and said, no, like, we'll do that, dude. We'll do that. Like that. There's actual interest from athletic departments. Now, would there be a lot of shaking and moving and like logistics that have to go into it? And could it be a potential nightmare? Yes. But I do think that if this is something that athletic departments can get done, why wouldn't you?
Well, and here's why you don't, because of exactly what Matt Rule said a week ago, where he talked about every decision that is being made right now is based on the bottom line, is based on, does that make your team better?
That's a good point.
For getting into the college football playoff, for getting to the goals that you want to get. And I understand the iron sharpens iron. You want to go against the best, and that's going to make you better. But there's a reason that, and I know Troy Dannon came out and said it's the stadium project and it's money, but it's the real reason that you cancel the Tennessee game is because you want an easier game in the non-conference. That is what it is. So at no point in anything that Matt Rule has said since he's been in Lincoln indicates Nebraska would ever go against someone else in the spring.
Absolutely. And if you want to add, which is why I bring back to I wonder if this is a thing, if people find the benefit in college football and more teams start to do it, how far along would Matt Rule come on this? Because it's against like you said, it's against of what he said in the past. But I mean,
if he's winning in the fall, and they just went,
but you talk
7-6. But if he goes 9-3 and he continues to win 8+ games every year going forward, and I know Nebraska hasn't done that. I'm just playing this out.
Sure, play it out.
If they continue to win,
we're doing this is a hypothetical.
If they continue to win 8-9, whatever in the fall, it doesn't matter what they're not going to change what they're doing in the spring.
If they consistently are treading water in the 8-9 region, and there is something that other teams that are doing that those teams are winning more games than Nebraska, I hope they would look across the country and say, hey, those teams who are beating us or those teams who are having more success than us are doing this one very different thing that we definitely can do. We should do that.
Well, and that's what Matt Rule said about the scheduling. He said, look at Ohio State this year, look at Michigan the year before.
There's just this is just kind of just an interesting conversation to have because one, I think it's a great idea.
As a fan, I love it.
But secondly, it's one of those things where there is a benefit to doing it, but it's against of what your head coach has been saying. And so if this is something that gets moving and there's a snowball effect of it, you wonder if Matt Rule, who has been on the forefront of a lot of different ideas in college football, if he would get along with that, if he would play along with it, even though it kind of does go against the things that he's said in the past. It's a conversation that, frankly, we're going to have all spring, we're going to have all summer, and something that we'll see if this develops into something that will be very interesting. Someone who also always talks about some things interesting and things that are always developing, not only just in Nebraska football, but Nebraska sports in general, is Sam McKewon of the Omaha World Herald. We'll be talking to Sam coming up next here on Gary and Matt. So we'll go from talking to Dion, a guy that people are often surprised about when he has good ideas, to a guy that no one's ever surprised about when he has good ideas. We're talking to Omaha World Herald aficionado Sam McKewon. Sam, how you doing?
Is it aficionado
I don't
of the
know.
paper?
The sports director of Omaha World Herald. I don't know. I was trying to wrap some things together and put a very fancy title. I don't know how I came up with aficionado. It's a word we should use more. We're talking to Sam McKewon. Sam, how you doing, my man?
Good. I'm all right. Had to pick up my kids late last night from a flight, so we're good. We're just trying to figure our way out of the fog this morning.
So, did you not wake up at 4:45 in the morning to watch your Chicago Cubs play the LA Dodgers?
I did not.
Oh,
no. How's it going? Are they winning?
They're losing right now. They've made 2 errors, and Ohtani just had a leadoff double in the top of the 9th.
Yeah, baby.
Because why wouldn't he? You know what? It's not June yet, so Seiya is actually playing terrible right now. He just had a really good opportunity. I'm just saying that's what happens. Hey, Sam, you know what season it is. It's March Madness. It's probably the best sport week of the year. You could argue with the games on Thursday and Friday. Unfortunately for people like you, me, and Caleb, we can't take the day off to watch it because that is our work essentially. But
hey, do what you love. You never work a day in your life.
Oh no, we're not. Hey, you're not going to hear me complaining about having to watch basketball all day and talk about it on the radio the next. Hey, so the bracket came out and there was a lot of really negative reaction to it, right? I mean, there was people who were very mad about who got left in and who got left out, and a lot of conversation about the committee and who's on the committee and who should be on the committee. Just in your opinion, are we overreacting to the bracket maybe not being what we anticipate it to being? And would you change at all how they seed teams in the NCAA tournament or change that process or change the committee?
Well, I mean, I think there's an overreaction to North Carolina being in the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even if I wouldn't have put North Carolina in the field, I think that the idea that there's some sort of impropriety involved, and that somehow, if Bubba Cunningham wasn't there, they wouldn't be in the field. I don't know that to be true. I do know human dynamics shape conversations. I think Ohio State was a beneficiary of that in 2014 in the college football playoff. With Barry Alvarez, on that committee and Tom Osborne on that committee, and those guys are experts and all the rest. But I don't know. I think we're overreacting to that. I think there were some other decisions that were made that were as related to seeding, placement of teams that seemed more odd to me and seemed less sensible. And I think the issue that's at hand is it appears that the priority of how you're going to seed the teams is to some degree rooted in games that very few people watch and are back in November and December and are one-off, neutral site games at one place or another. I mean, I think Kansas is given credit for, playing the way it did in late November. And
Absolutely.
that's just not what I would do. Like I wouldn't put a lot of because I think the reason that you'd emphasize that is sort of almost like moral. Like we really need to reward the teams that try to give themselves a rigorous path at the beginning of the season, because that's how our sport should operate, and that's how it promotes itself. Like I don't know why, because to me the logic is the teams that I respect the most are the ones that beat the teams who know them the best, and that's their conference teammates, not the other way around. And so I feel like there's been a lot of like, well, there was this domino back in November, and this one toppled, and this one toppled, and this SEC team did this to Michigan, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then all the SEC teams played each other, and they all benefited from these 9 games that happened in November and December. And I just don't think that's a good model. But that's the model they want to use, and that's what they do. I think that's what's going on. I don't think it's the committee members.
Sure.
I think it's the way that they choose to emphasize games that, in my opinion, are less consequential than conference games. But that's my opinion. People can do what they want with that.
Sure. So let's add. I want to add a layer to this, because there would be some people, and when I mean some people, I mean me, who would say that, hey, maybe expanding the non-con schedule, having it go deeper into the year and closer to March, might be a benefit, because you're absolutely right. We're judging March off of what happened in November, and those teams are very different now than what they were 4 months ago, right? And so I would say, well, maybe you add more conference games, or add a little sliver into the middle of the schedule of where you play more non-con games, so you get a better idea of what leagues are clicking, right? We base the SEC being great off of events that happened months ago. Would you, it sounds like you're kind of the opposite of that would you rather they be more conference games and us eliminate some non-con games, or not put as much emphasis on them?
Yeah, I think the emphasis piece is what I would probably note. Could you build into the NET system a different tier of a different quad measurement for conference games? I think that might be something that you could consider doing. In other words, a home game against a top 50, quad team, or a top 50 net team, is a quad 1 win when it's a conference game.
Yeah.
Not just top 30, but top 50. And then there's, I think there's some aspects of, so I do bracketology for our website, and I'm not trying to promote reading those.
Sure.
But I added quad 1 plus quad 2 every time I did the category. And one of the reasons I did that is because I had been told somewhere along the way, a couple of years ago or whatever, they look at the quad 2 as well. And then they want to know if you have any bad losses. And so, the whole thing about it just being quad 1 and not including quad 2, we saw that was repudiated when it was North Carolina. And here's why. You can have some really good neutral site and home wins against teams that are that team is a net 42, and that's a quad 2 game.
Sure.
And then you can have a win at, net 76, like Northwestern, Nebraska beating Northwestern, or whatever Northwestern was. And that's quad 1. Yeah. The whole quad 1, quad 2 thing, in a lot of ways, those games are often indistinguishable. Sure. And so I understood the whole argument behind, we looked at North Carolina's quad 2 rating, because, there's other teams that benefit from the quad 2 thing. So I don't know. Do you reshape what is a quad 1 win? Do you reserve quad 3 and quad 4 for non-conference games that are clearly teams that are just way down in the whatever? So there's just a lot of different things you could do. I think my point is that when you emphasize games in November and December, then you have to, if that's what the committee wants to do, then the sport needs to have a strategy around promoting those games more. Because as it stands right now, most people don't. You say, the tipping point. You go back to the game that defined everything. That was the 9 p.m. game on the Thanksgiving Eve in Hawaii.
Yeah,
that's dumb. That's just a dumb way to set it up.
Yeah, I agree.
Because most people aren't paying attention to that, and that's. Here's the other thing, guys. As we move into the revenue sharing era, are we really going to Hawaii and the Bahamas? And
no.
Are they going to those places anymore?
I mean,
are they really spending all that money to go out there and play games and help them make the NCAA tournament? That's unrealistic.
The Diamond Head Classic isn't going to happen next year.
Forever champions, Nebraska.
Yeah, right.
Like those, you're absolutely right.
The one that I brought up was Villanova. So obviously the lesson at Villanova, which fired Kyle Neptune, and I'm not saying that he should have kept his job, although I thought he was a pretty good coach. Mm-hmm. The lesson of Villanova is don't play the other teams in Philadelphia, because they're not good enough to play, even though you've done that for, 70, 80 years. Don't play LaSalle, don't play Drexel, don't play Temple, because heaven forbid you lose one of those games.
Yes.
Historically.
Yes.
And then the domino tips in the wrong direction. Well, you shouldn't have played that game. That was the wrong basketball game for you guys to play.
Yeah.
That's dumb. It shouldn't be like, you get rewarded for going down to, somewhere in the Florida Keys and playing somebody down there, but don't you dare play the team that's 3 miles away.
Yeah.
in the Palestra, because that's only an that's an NET this game, and that's a quad 3, and that's dumb. And you don't want that. You don't want to promote that kind of system. And I feel like that's what's getting promoted. And it used to be, you go back 25 years, I mean, they would be like, well, I don't know, RPI, eye test, they just kind of threw the cards up in the air.
Sure.
And they made mistakes.
Yeah.
But they didn't make the mistake of like, well, here's this tipping point 3 months ago, and the domino goes this way.
Sure.
And, oh, if you had only not played Drexel, like that, I don't like that. I think that's a bad system. And in college football, I'm just telling you that, and Matt Rule has said this many times, in college football, that does not happen.
Yeah.
Like, they have metrics. It's not. A lot of it is, okay, well, they got pretty good in December. Oh, they're pretty good now. And they won 6 in a row to end the season. Like, and then there's coaches in that room that do the whole eye test thing, and they basically break down who's good at football. And I just don't know how much of that's going on with the committee. I think they're too driven by events that happened months before. And you have to find a way, at the very least, put the date, have these showcases in Kansas City or Dallas or places where people can go and watch the games, because they're apparently super important.
Yeah.
Sam, I was going to ask that about football, because it seems like, well, Nebraska canceled the series with Tennessee. The non-conference doesn't matter. It is what we're hearing. But in basketball, something that happened for Nebraska's case being on the bubble, Hawaii mattered.
Yeah.
The loss to St. Mary's mattered. The win over Creighton mattered in November. Yeah. But in football, a win or a loss to Tennessee in September is not going to hold the same weight as the 9 Big Ten games for those committees. How do we bridge that gap between a committee for the college football playoff, which is made up of former people who watch the games and dissect what's a good team and not, and the NCAA basketball selection committee, which is current administrators who definitely don't have the time with everything else going on to break down all of the teams with the eye test and watch all the games?
Yeah, I think the football one, which received a lot of criticism for sure, this most recent time, because of the inclusion of Indiana and SMU and the exclusion of Alabama and South Carolina. They received a lot of heat for that. And I've said this many times. I just can't speak that intelligently about SMU football. I saw them a little bit, but not a lot. Indiana, I saw a lot. Indiana belonged in the playoff, and I told everybody who asked. I'm like, yeah. And then everybody overreacted to the loss to Notre Dame, especially when some of the other teams started getting blown out. So, I think the college football playoff committee, there's things they could do differently. The thing that the college football playoff committee could do differently is let's don't have 10 rankings. Don't do that. Don't. But I've never understood the magical switch that occurred in 2019, where Ohio State was number 1, and then magically it was number 2 at the very end, and they flipped them because LSU's defense had improved and whatever, and that's all fine. But there's moments in the college football playoff where you can tell sentiment sort of takes over.
Sure.
But again, the basketball committee, I'm not saying they have a system.
Yeah.
And that's an obvious system. I'm just saying that if your system is to do that, then by goodness, find a way to promote the games and put them in the states. At the very least. And Hawaii's a state, obviously.
The sentiment's
the Bahamas is not.
Yeah.
Is not. Put them in big cities. And
make them matter. Make them watchable, right?
Oh yeah, and they did that to some degree with Las Vegas. The Duke Kansas game was in Las Vegas, so it's not that it's not important, but or what you do is you come up with a super category for playing non-conference road games, true road games, not neutral site, and you mess with the dial so that Duke's playing at Kansas and Kansas is playing at Duke, and it's not in a half-filled casino arena as I call it. It's not in some half-filled casino arena.
Yeah.
Where at 9 o'clock on an ESPN Tuesday night, which is I think when that game was played.
Sure.
So you got to find a way to promote those games more, and they're not. They're afterthoughts. And then they turn out to be the defining element of the season. Kansas is a 7 seed. Come on.
Yeah.
And Louisville's an 8. Then no, come
That
on.
makes no sense.
Come on. That just doesn't exist in the realm of possibility. And yet that happened because Kansas beat Duke.
Yeah, and Clemson has benefited from that as well. But granted, that was in the ACC conference. So that is a little bit different from the non-con. Hey, Sam McKewon of the Omaha World Herald, we're going to get you out right here, but real quickly, just your outlook on Creighton versus Louisville and Omaha versus St. John's. They both play on Thursday.
I'll start with you in Omaha.
Yeah.
Obviously St. John's is really, really good in the last 10, 15 minutes of games. So it won't surprise me if the Mavs are within striking distance with 15 minutes left to go in the game. At the under 16 mark of the second half, it won't surprise me. But St. John's has a tendency, right, to pour it on late. So I think St. John's will win that game, probably close to the line. 17, 18 points.
Okay.
But I think it's going to be competitive, and I think people are going to be banging trash cans at halftime. It's going to be fun. At 11 o'clock on Thursday night. Creighton's got a tough task. I think Louisville is a athletic and talented team. Should be at full strength, and they're going to be pissed off, and obviously they got a chip on their shoulder. And again, Creighton could beat almost every team in the field. And so let's not pretend that, they're a 2.5 point dog, I think.
Yeah.
Not by much.
No.
That's a 3-pointer. And if Ashworth lines up a tray at the end and it goes in, Creighton wins by 1. That won't surprise anybody. It wouldn't surprise me. What I would say is that there's been many years where I'm like, oh yeah, Creighton's going to win a couple. A couple years ago when they went to the Elite Eight, I felt real, real good about them beating Baylor. And I told people that. I'm like, yeah, they're going to beat Baylor.
Yeah.
They're going to beat them. So I don't say that this time. I'm not like, oh yeah, they're gonna smash Louisville. I don't think they are. I think it's gonna be a tight game, and then they're gonna play Auburn. I can tell you, I'm sure Auburn's not thrilled to play either Creighton or
not at all.
Louisville.
No,
at all. So I think Auburn's gonna have to play its game. They struggle in the NCAA tournament. Outside of the year they went to the Final Four.
Lost to Yale.
One of these highly seeded SEC teams is not making it to the second weekend. So you have Florida, Auburn, Tennessee, or Alabama. Out of those 4, one's going home. I don't know which one it's going to be, but it could be Auburn. It could be any of the 4, and we'll just have to see which one of the 4 is sad and quote unquote overseeded after the first weekend.
Hey, Sam, that was absolutely incredible. Love it when you talk about basketball, and good luck to you, and we'll see you next week. All right.
All right, take care.
All right. Sam McKewon of the Omaha World Herald. I love it.
Aficionado.
Yeah, I love it when he gets passionate about stuff. That was a great moment.
Sam's good.
He was just dropping a bunch of random mid-major schools that teams are going to be playing. Hey, we got a couple good guests coming up. We got.
I want to see more LaSalle basketball.
More LaSalle
baby.
basketball. We got some more basketball coming up. We got everything as the Dodgers just beat the Cubs to open up the MLB season.
Let's go.
Oh well. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. Just had Sam McKewon on from the Omaha World Herald. Hey, if you missed any of today's show, don't forget to go back and listen to the Gary and Matt podcast of everything that we've talked about so far, previewing Creighton versus Louisville, Omaha versus St. John's, as long as the fact talking about Colorado and their new spring game idea, whether or not Nebraska should maybe think about doing it. Hey, don't go anywhere, though. We got a couple more interviews coming up here on the show, and we'll have Brian Christopherson at 9 o'clock and Andy Kendeigh at 9:45. That's the lineup, and it's powered by the Rooferys at John Higgins Weather Guard. Coming up next, we'll get into some of your tweets, some of your emails, and then start talking about the tournament this week. Some of our picks, some of our upsets, teams that we like, teams that we don't like. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Gary and Matt here on 1620 The Zone.
This basketball season, which is getting to be pretty hot right now, when your favorite stars, or just anybody on their team, score buckets or alley-ooping you an opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Though you'll need to probably pick those random players, otherwise they do nothing for you. Anyway, Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now right here in the state of Nebraska. They've got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. You can create entries with all basketball picks, or if you'd like to try anything else, they had baseball today. I did that. I need to check how I did. And hockey. Hey, you can play with as little as $1. If you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into 1,000 just with your hoops knowledge. This week on Underdog, what do you think I'm doing? I'm looking at the tournament, all the games. We're going to win something. I know it. Speak it into existence. Well, you can speak this into existence as well. Download the Underdog app and sign up now using the promo code ZONE to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on all the fun when you sign up with promo code ZONE. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. Must be 19 plus in Nebraska and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
In a very typical Omaha fashion, yesterday was an incredible day of weather. Today will be a
77.
very nice day of weather. And then tomorrow we will have thunderstorms,
Tomorrow,
and rain, and apparently snow.
a blizzard.
I blame Josh
And
Peterson.
a blizzard.
Always.
And because,
He gets off to this, getting us snow in March.
we have certain hosts on this radio station who claim that it's not going to snow anymore. And
That's
then
what I heard.
almost like it's clockwork. Like they can hear them. They go, no,
Yes.
dude.
Tomorrow's forecast is one big clogged toilet after a night of drinking and eating questionable food. And then Thursday and Friday is better.
Yeah, Thursday.
Perfect for
Friday's
watching
gonna be
basketball.
Great.
It's going to be 22. Do you dress for the low or dress for the high? When you look at the weather, when you're like, when you put on your clothes, or you're like, oh, I wonder what the low is going to be, so I'll dress for that. Or do you look at the high and you're like, oh, I'll dress for the high?
Or do you do like Mike Leach and you stick your thumb in your mouth and stick it out in the air and see, oh, well, the wind's blowing.
I guess we're going to put it that way.
I throw a hoodie on.
You can't go wrong. You
Like
can
this-
always
that
take it
is-
off.
It is a good point. You have been, ever since I've met you, you just wear sweatpants and hoodies, and that's just about it.
Bill
And nice
Belichick.
hats.
Hey,
Yeah.
Bill Belichick started a trend, minus the hat.
I
The
got
sweet
like
hat.
these are golf pants.
Yeah, you should do.
It's a great
you should
hoodie.
do a Belichick, just like cut off the sleeves of one of your hoodies and just kind of walk in and be a curmudgeon everywhere. And
See,
then,
the difference
I do
is-
have a short sleeve hoodie.
and then
You won't like me wearing it.
Why? Oh.
Cardinals.
Pull
pull a Belichick and divorce.
Get the
your
rule
very
hoodie
loving-
with the short
divorce
sleeve.
a very loving wife and then marry her. Start dating a 24-year-old that is way older.
This
than
Here's the
took a
thing:
dark
the
turn.
age difference. That 24-year-old's not born yet.
Yeah. Oh, for you. Yeah. I was just making a Belichick joke. I wasn't really. Being
I'm
serious.
telling
Yeah, that
you.
24-year-old is
Your
Caleb's
wife- your wife-
granddaughter's
your wife
friend.
is great. I love your wife. Your wife is
I
the sweetest woman
also
ever.
love my wife.
Shout out his wife.
My wife.
My wife. God,
You,
this is
s-
like
you just said that like somebody who's never watched Borat.
my wife.
That's better.
Come on.
Connor and Josh do it the best, I would
What-
say.
what
They,
did-
they
what
have
did
like
you-
a Abbott and Costello thing together.
I love how people they're probably tuning in being like, oh, I guess Gary isn't on today. Like, what did they expect? I mean, of course the Borat impressions are going to be rampant when Mr. Gary isn't in town, which by the way, he's not in town because he's on a nice charter private flight
Business trip.
to Providence, Rhode Island, as
Enjoying
the
some fruit
Omaha
snacks.
Mavericks are going dancing for the first time in school history, and they will take on the Rick Pitino PR tour in the East Coast, where hopefully they will slay the dragon that is the St. John's Red Storm.
You don't think Gary's going to
become-
dress as Patino
Oh,
Thursday night?
Oh my God! If Gary
All GQ'd
if,
out.
if Gary announced the game in like a white,
Just an
suit,
all-white suit.
oh, he dressed in a beautiful cream Italian suit. He didn't wear a tie, wore a nice gold chain.
Hair
just
gel?
sitting-
Seriously, when Patino
He doesn't-
uses
he
the
doesn't
urinal
need hair.
wearing that white suit,
Gary's not wearing hair gel. All right,
When-
Gary's fine. Gary doesn't need hair gel.
when Patino wears the white suit and uses that urinal, how does he not get any splashback?
I-
That's what I would want to know. Like, how do you pull this off?
Definitely peeing into a bottle, just to
Pull a
to
Joe
reduce
Buck?
the splashback. I guess, yeah. Do or that or a Scott Hansen. Hey, so we go to the J Tech Construction Twitter feed. The Angry Banana
My man.
Ooh.
tweets at Matt McMedia. I'm all in on this idea, and he's talking about doing the spring game and having spring practices against
not like
other
suits and
teams,
urinals.
bringing in other teams to have spring practices. He goes, I'm all in on this idea, but they should use it almost like a recruiting camp. Play North Dakota State or South Dakota State and scout them. Recruiting opportunity. Give them the whole experience for 3 days. Thursday, Friday practice, Saturday game, weight room recovery, training table, etc. All the amenities, treat them like your own. You'll have 2 to 3 of their best players by fall.
Yeah, I'm sure those programs would really want to sign up for that.
Enjoy that. Yeah. I mean, that is kind of the double-edged sword, right? If you're bringing another team into the facility and doing all that. And look, let's be honest here. Okay? There's no way that you're going to eliminate tampering in college sports, period, end of story. Okay? There's just really no way
Because there's no
about it.
oversight right now.
They can't do it. It's not even that. They have oversight in the NFL and they don't catch enough. They have oversight in the NBA and rules and regulations against it, and teams still get away with it consistently. It's just really, really hard unless you are an FBI agent and everybody signs up to have their phones tapped constantly. There's no way you're going to find out, if other teams are contacting your players. Yes, if there was oversight and rules and regulations, would you catch more of it than not? Absolutely. There's no way to fully eliminate it. We'll go to the Equitable Bank inbox. I can never say that word.
Equitable?
It don't feel bad.
Equitable
we all kind of
Bank
struggle it.
Inbox, where they do
Doug's Bank's inbox,
where they take banking personally. We haven't gotten a call from Doug or Andrew or basketball Mike or anything like that today. Well, Doug's not listening anymore. He doesn't listen after 8
They
o'clock.
liked all my basketball takes.
Did they? Jim writes in, guys, they don't need the silly spring game. Stop. Move on. I mean, if we're just talking about a team-on-team spring game, yes. I'm not a big fan of the amount of that you have, the amount of experiences that you have at Memorial Stadium. It's just different to walk into that stadium and all the history it has and to watch a game there. And, someone brought up a great point yesterday that, it's really important for the younger generation of Husker fans to experience those things. At the same time, we're getting to the point where the cost-benefit ratio of the spring game definitely isn't as high or needed as it used to be.
And you can still go into a Memorial Stadium for the Husker games. I know it's different, but you're still in there.
John writes in, Rule wants to play Nebraska Wesleyan level competition in the regular season. He would never play them in a spring game.
Maybe.
And then we go to Zach, who says, if Rule had any blank, he would do the spring practice with Colorado. Talking about cojones there.
Need that circus again.
No, we don't.
That's not happening.
We don't need.
I love the idea. I get it, but
he also then writes in, could you imagine the buzz for a Nebraska versus Colorado spring game? I mean, but why? Why?
But what's the benefit?
Yeah, why? Like not. Okay, so the benefit would obviously be like, hey, you get to play against high level competition, all the benefits that we talked about in the past,
money
right?
and TV.
But like at the same time, that is one where it's like a rival and it's a little bit too much animosity, and you would have too many people who would take that too seriously. There would be way too many there would just be way too much crap talking and just stakes in that game for something that is just supposed to be a scrimmage. I don't do it with Colorado. I do it with Georgia Tech, What's the most random Power 5 team you can name that's down to the Big Ten? Do it with Washington State, well, they're not Power 5, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, they're trying to rebuild
Don't do
it
it
back.
with a rival. Don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck with rebuilding the Pac-12. Might as well read the Mountain West. All right. We're done with football.
Thank you.
No more football today. We are in the greatest week.
Wait till the breaking news
of
happens
the
in
year.
an hour.
No breaking news. No, nothing like that. Don't play the music or anything. We are talking basketball from here on out. The tournament is upon us. There are two teams that are 30 blocks away from one another that are going to be competing in the NCAA tournament. One of them will be there for the very first time. We have a very unique tourney this year. It's a tourney in where you've heard it over and over again. It's top heavy. The 1 seeds are incredible. The 2 seeds are incredible. Your middling 4, 5, 6 seeds definitely aren't as potent as they used to be. But then on top of that, which is an incredible wrinkle in all of this, this is one of the better mid-major tournaments that we've had in quite a while. I mean, there are some high-level teams that are coming out of, conferences that you typically don't watch play. And this is a great opportunity for them to be showcased and play high-level basketball, and some of them have been doing that. And so, first question to you, Caleb Henry.
Yes.
How many brackets do you fill out? What are we doing here? Have you filled out your bracket? How many do you fill out, and give me an upset?
I have filled out one.
Oh, do you only do one? I feel like this is a trend nowadays that more people are only going with one. They're not doing the whole I'm filling out 8 brackets because I want to win the tournament. I feel like pride is taking over a little bit when it comes to this season.
There was a time in my life where I filled out 5 by noon on Monday. It was just filled them out. And,
sure.
And at that time, I printed it out and you were handwriting. Handwriting.
I'm young, but I do remember that back in the day. You put them on. You put it on the fridge. You go back after every game. You look at it. You take the red little marker. You put it through the dot. You take the yellow highlighter. You highlight it if they won.
you make a copy of it and you throw it in your friend's locker and $5 in there as well.
Oh.
Sorry, stuff hadn't been passed, but guess what? We were all doing it.
You ever won
all of us?
Have you ever won a bracket?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never won one. Have you, Jimmy?
You're young. You have years to win one. I've won 2.
I've won multiple.
Yeah.
Really?
But I've also been doing
quite
this
impressive.
for 20 years. You know,
I feel like that's kind of, I don't know. We always hear
We've watched a lot of ball.
and Francine from accounting and marketing and HR, that they're the ones that don't even watch basketball and end up winning it. I think it's pretty impressive like Jimmy says in the comments, the less you know, the better you are.
Yeah,
I mean, that explains life.
I've never won for an office one.
Fair enough. Okay.
So that's a little bit different. But,
I'll say we'll leave this right now.
Right now I have filled out one. So
Okay.
in that one is probably going to be what you call like your main bracket.
Sure.
From here,
Everybody's got to have a main bracket.
Maybe I'll fill out a couple where I'm like,
you have a couple side brackets.
Dislike this team. Maybe this team makes a run. Stupid stuff like that.
A couple side brackets you're hitting up at 2 a.m. on a weekend.
Yes. Where you can just go, yeah, I called that game.
I called that game.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I saw that happen.
But I'm not doing a doing brackets. Like we're not doing that. I feel
like it's disingenuous. Just go with your gut. Go with it you believe.
That's why this is
fill out one and let it ride.
When I'm back here on Friday and we talk any of like where we're at, it's this one bracket.
Me too. I have not fully filled out mine. I'm still teetering on what my Final Four is going to be. I'm putting a lot of thought into it, which will probably come and bite me in the butt. But
yeah, just go with who has the cuter mascot.
Give me one
to work.
Give me one upset, Caleb Henry. Give me one that you're looking at and you're like, I like this. Like, I am confident. I would even put money on this double-digit seed to go ahead and upset this single seed.
Well,
what are you looking at? There's a couple. I'm going to tell you something right now. You're looking at all these experts and all these people that they're talking about, what they're doing for the bracket. There are some more of these 13, 14 upsets that I'm seeing now more than ever. People are incredibly confident. Give me one. I have a good one for you if you're not ready.
No. I would just tell you, I have 9 double-digit wins in the first round.
Really? You have 9?
There are a lot in that 11 to 13 range that I like.
Really?
I like.
Give me your top one.
Top one?
Give me your top one.
I'm really out on Memphis.
Okay.
I'm really out on Memphis. So Colorado State is the 12. That's the 12-5 there. I'm really out on Memphis. Now, there's going to be popular ones as well. Like UC San Diego is going to be super popular.
Sure.
Against Michigan.
Yale is going to be incredibly popular against Texas A&M. Those are kind of ones where
Drake, Missouri.
Drake, Missouri is going to be an incredibly popular one. Those are the ones where
picking against. And you get a little bit smaller with the 10-7 with Arkansas, Kansas. Kansas has a 7.
Yeah.
Like the way Kansas has played over the last 2 months.
I think that UC San Diego one. So I think the Yale over Texas A&M definitely is the popularity of Yale beating Auburn, in the past.
Yep.
And then on top of that, they were a really, really good team this year. They dominated the Ivy League, and they're going to play a Texas A&M team that is solid in the SEC. But I think the reason why people are picking Yale, it's more so because of the fact that, man, if you saw them play against Cornell, that's a grown man basketball team. And they Texas A&M doesn't bring in terms of like matchup problems, the most matchup problems that you could to a mid-major basketball team like that. It'll be a very even played basketball game. I think that spread is under double digits right now. I'll tell you one that is really, really popular, that has a lot of validity. And I'll give you one that no one is talking about that I really, really, really like. Okay. Number 1, UC San Diego over Michigan.
Yep.
I think that a lot of people look at UC San Diego, and I think the what is something that gets them going about that game in particular is that they are a mid-major conference that got a lot of talk about being an at-large bid. Okay. And whenever you're in the mid-major and you get at-large conversation, it's one of those things where it's, oh my God, they must be really, really good. They must be dominant. This is a team that you don't even know, like they haven't played enough Power 5 teams yet, but you're teetering on the fact that this is going to be an even basketball game, which is why I think the spread, they're only a 2.5 point underdog. They rolled in their conference, but I'll tell you why this one has a lot of validity. Michigan is one of the worst turnover teams in the country.
Yes.
They're averaging 14.1 turnovers per game. That's 340th in the nation. That is like one of the worst marks, period, out of everyone in America. Okay. This is a a team that it just does not have a good time taking care of the ball. And part of the reason is that because they have a lot of 7-footers who are good ball handlers for their size, but not great ball handlers in general. And, you got a guy like Roddy Gale Jr. who can get careless with the basketball. And when you look at the other side of the coin here, UC San Diego is one of the best defensive turnover teams in the country. They're averaging 9.1 steals per game. That's top 6 in the nation. And so I think the contrast of style here between Michigan and UC San Diego is something to watch for, because if Michigan doesn't take care of the basketball, not only is UC San Diego going to take advantage of that from a steals perspective, but a point perspective as well. And I just think when you are the Big Ten champion, which by the way, Big Ten champion hasn't gotten out of the second round in the last, I think 3 of the last 4 years.
It's like a kiss of death.
At this point, Michigan played 3 games in 3 days, 3 incredibly competitive games in 3 days. They don't have the advantage of having, fresher legs than some of the other teams in the Big Ten who lost out earlier. And then you have a guy at UC San Diego and Aniwa Tate Jones, who has an opportunity to be a superstar in this tournament. He's a 6'6" forward from New Zealand. He's an absolute stud. He's averaging 20 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. I think that his size on the wing and his just smoothness and just ability to work outside and in is going to give this Michigan defense some fits. He's really good at finishing around the rim. So I think UC San Diego has that they're in a unique position where their matchup as a mid-major double-digit seed goes really well against a, conference champion power conference team. But then they also have the matchup on top of having just a guy who could play at that same incredibly high level. And so I think when you mix those two things together, it's no surprise to me that is a very, very sexy, pick in a 12-5 scenario.
It's going to be very popular. You've heard it said even before the bracket came out. You heard that it was going to be extremely popular. You said you had another one that like nobody is talking about.
I love the Bryant Bulldogs.
Ooh, okay.
Over Michigan State.
I do not have that.
Okay.
I can tell you I do not have that.
So here's the thing about Michigan State. If you've been watching Michigan State basketball, the number one thing is that they are an incredibly deep roster. Okay, and I think that's part of the allure with them. A lot of people were up in arms when they won the Big Ten regular season and they didn't have one first team or second team all Big Ten guy. And you kind of go down that list of Carr, Holloman, Fiddler, Jace Richardson, of just, really good players on the team, but not like a true superstar. Now, Holloman has been playing really well in terms of closing out games, but the lifeblood of this Michigan State team this year has been rebounding. They are 8th in the country with 26.4 rebounds per game. Their offensive rebounding percentage is 33.7%. They are crashing the boards consistently. They are getting second chance points. They're clearing boards in terms of defensive rebounding. 78% of the time they're coming down with the board. But if you go and look at this Bryant Bulldog basketball team,
they got some size.
They have a ton of size. 6'6", 6'6", 6'11", 6'7", 6'5", 6'8", 6'3". Michigan State is a smaller team. They don't necessarily have that dominant size up and down that entire lineup. And so I think that with Bryant's physicality, it's going to be something incredibly interesting in terms of them being able to compete on the boards with a really, really good Michigan State team. But then what you also have to couple into this is, what do we always look at in terms of the matchups? Speed of play, right? And pace of play is a massive, massive factor when you're looking at the matchup between these two teams. And something that, I consistently keep my eye out for is discrepancies within teams that play really, really fast and teams that play, not as quickly as that. Bryant is 7th in the country in pace of play. They have 75.5 possessions per game. They're only 3 possessions under Alabama, okay? And they're doing it, not at, like, the most. They're like, not at the highest efficient rate that he can have, but they're averaging 80 points per game. Like this team can score. Now, their shooting percentages definitely don't, stick out to you, 45% a game. But when they're running and gunning and playing this, aggressive defense, and if they're able to clear the boards against Michigan State, I really like this matchup for the Bulldogs. And I'm not saying that I'm like, oh my God, I'm putting my stamp on it and I'm guaranteed that this is going to happen. But I think this is going to be a scary game for the Spartans.
Yeah, if you're looking at games where what are the double-digit seeds that have the potential, that's a good one. I do like Michigan State in this tournament, though. And I know that Izzo hasn't exactly made like a bunch of runs of late. And but I do like the potential for that one. I'm not going to pick that one.
Sure.
But I do like the potential for that. Here's another one that I put on my bracket, High Point over Purdue.
Us bus.
High Point over
Purdue. Do
Purdue.
you think with Purdue, there's a little bit of PTSD, though, with them losing to Fairleigh Dickinson and them losing to St. Peter's, where people have seen this Matt Painter team lose these massive games in the tournament a little bit too much?
They just made the national championship.
No, I know, exactly. That's what my argument would be. But I'm throwing that out there for you. I'm giving you a little bit of bait here to come and run with it.
No, I'm saying some of it's the matchup. High Point's got a 7-footer. Okay. High Point shoots the ball well. Purdue, and that's from the outside, and they also grab a good amount of second chance points because of that 7-footer. And they score inside just as well.
Sure.
Purdue, without Zach Edey, has forgotten how to defend the paint. They give up a lot of points in the paint. So if High Point can come out and they're hitting threes and you have to extend a little bit and they're getting second chance points, Purdue's going to struggle. Purdue can put up points as well. That might be a high-scoring game, like both teams in the 80s. High Point can score the basketball. Purdue can score the basketball.
Yeah.
If you're looking at that game, whether you're looking at the point spread and you're saying just take High Point plus the points type of a thing, sure, go ahead and do that. But I think this is a game that if High Point is scoring, Purdue's not going to stop them.
Sure. I think another point, too, is you look at Purdue's past games that they've lost.
They've lost 6 of the last 9.
You go ahead, you lose to Michigan in early February. They lose that game. What does Michigan have? They have a 7-footer in Danny Wolf. They got a 7-footer in Vlad Golden. They go ahead and they could not defend the paint against Wisconsin. And that was because John Tonje just could get whatever the hell he wanted within that paint, especially toward the end of the game. They lost early in the year in December to Auburn, and Auburn has Janai Broom and just an incredibly physical interior in general. So I think it's one hell of a point that, I think Creighton is going to go through this as well. When you have a guy who is as dominant in the paint and who has not only been a focal point on the offensive end for so long, but also on the defensive end.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that you have a lot of talented players, and Purdue has a lot of talented players, and Creighton will have talented players next year that are coming back to the team. Despite that, when you lose an anchor of that magnitude, when you lose a guy who has been maybe Zach Edey, without a doubt, was the most important player on his team last year in the country.
Right.
Ryan Kalkbrenner is the most important player on his team in the country this year. I know it's a bold statement, but I really do think that with what he does on both ends for the floor for Creighton, being the Big East Defensive Player in the Year 4 years in a row, but then on top of that, he should have won Big East Player of the Year, period, end of story. That was an absolute joke that he lost that. But Purdue was going through that transition period, and despite the fact that they have the best player in the Big Ten in Braden Smith, when you lose a key piece like that, it almost, you kind of have to look yourself in the mirror and coach yourself out of that. I feel like Matt Painter, to a certain extent, has had to coach himself out of being with Zach Edey. Greg McDermott, that's going to be a challenge that he's going to have to face next year as well. I'm just kind of looking up and down this board. Like
one other double-digit seed, real quick.
Give it to me.
Liberty, because of their style of play. They play slow.
Yeah.
And they make 40% of their threes.
Who are they? Who's
Oregon?
Oregon. That's an interesting matchup. That's very good. I know a lot of people really like Akron. That Akron over Arizona, and I think that has a lot to do with Arizona being incredibly inconsistent this year. Something that we didn't mention, Memphis, when they go and play Colorado State, which is a red-hot team. CSU, is playing some of the best basketball in the country right now, played themselves into the tournament. Tyrese Hunter, who's been out the last couple of games for Memphis, he is currently a game-time decision. Another quick note here, Fedor Zugic, it was announced earlier that he is likely to play on Thursday.
Okay.
And Rain Smith, who is Louisville's best three-point shooter, and Louisville, a high-volume three-point shooting team, he is going to play. So
Right.
Rain Smith will be there for Louisville. Talking about Akron real quick, the bottom and the top for Arizona has been one of those things where, like a lot of these teams, right, have been incredibly inconsistent. But Akron is another one of those teams. They're averaging 80 points a game at a high pace. They can score. They can shoot. They're deep. Nate Johnson is a guy to watch out for. He's averaging 14 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists a game. He's a 44% three-point shooter. Akron's going to run.
Yeah.
Akron's going to run. And Caleb Love is one of the most inconsistent players, maybe just in college basketball for the last couple of years, period, end of story. We've seen what he can do at a high level. We've seen what this team looks like at a low level. If Akron can push the pace, I think it'll be something that could go very well for them.
There are a few teams that I'm avoiding picking to make runs.
Give me before we got to get to break here in a second, but give me 2 teams that you're avoiding to make runs right now. That you're staying away from. They got the stench on them, if you will.
Iowa State.
Okay, well they're banged up.
I know, but they're what, a 3 seed?
A 3 seed right now.
Yeah, so you look at that. I'm avoiding them.
Lipscomb is going to be a hard game for them as well.
And this might be unpopular.
Yeah.
On this station, I'm avoiding picking Creighton to go like a long way.
Yeah, I think it's just a really tough matchup. We talked about it
It's
before.
the matchup and the draw, and it's got nothing to do with Creighton or how good potentially they are.
Creighton's one of those teams. I'll keep saying it over and over again. They could get to the Sweet 16. They could get to the Elite 8. I wouldn't blink an eye. But the draw they got against Louisville's style of play, and just the matchups in the defensive end just really don't bode well for
and then Auburn.
what Creighton has been doing. Yeah.
Like, that's a tough 2 games in 3 days.
Auburn's gonna be, yeah. I mean, that, and you got to look at the other side of the bracket. Houston's gonna have to end up playing Gonzaga, who's top 10 in the Ken Palm. It's a weird bracket.
South is loaded.
Look, it's a weird bracket, and we'll get into why it's a weird bracket. I wonder some of the things that the NCAA can do to fix that bracket. All that coming up and more here on Gary and Matt. Keeping it rolling here on a Tuesday as the NCAA tournament is here. It is upon us. It's a magical week. Take your Thursday off. Take your Friday off. Sit back. Pull out the lazy chair. Get in the fan room. Maybe order. What do you guys... I always thought about this. Like, what is the best, like, all-day watching sport catering item? Like, are you like watching like obviously like when you're watching football and everything like that, you're kind of on like the hot dogs and the brats and whatnot. But like basketball, like, is there really like an assigned food?
Pizza and wings.
Yeah, but I feel like pizza and wings is more of a football thing. I think I'm gonna make a bold.
You can eat it for anything.
Well, you can eat it for anything, but like when you're talking about a Super Bowl party, what are the advertisements that are going over the station? They're going over every station. Hey, come to Wings, Beers, and Sports, right? Come to this place, right? No, that's for football. I'm saying right now,
delicious.
I think basketball. I think the NCAA tournament. I think it's a sandwich catering.
A sandwich?
I think it's a sandwich
What kind
catering
of sandwich?
Sporting event. I think it's a nice like you go to Jersey
like your
Mike's,
Uncrustables.
You go to Jersey Mike's. You get 2 giant sandwiches. You cut them into 4s. You put them on a plate. Just put them out in the open. You just sit back and relax, and you just eat sandwiches all day. That's what I think.
I don't even have an argument for you because that's just the dumbest thing you've ever
What do
said.
you mean?
I mean, he
What do
could
you
have said
mean?
Dino Nuggets, like a big bucket of
What do you
them.
mean it's the dumbest thing I've ever
Wings
seen?
and beer is exclusive to football.
It's
They
not
have a Buffalo Wild
exclusive.
Wings commercial that'll play ad nauseum during the
It's not
tournament.
exclusive to football, but I think the NCAA tournament is an awesome sandwich.
And I like a
type of
sandwich.
sporting
I would
event.
eat one right now.
It's an awesome catering. Let's get like 10
I'm going to need
sandwiches
sandwich
here.
and lemonade for my basketball.
Exactly.
Come on over. We're going to have PB&J and High C.
It's a nuanced thing. I don't know. When I think of football, I think of barbaric wings dripping down your face, the sauce is everywhere, you're guzzling down some
We're still talking about
beers.
food, right?
Yes.
So what? So what do you want? Like nachos? Like you're at the arena?
No,
Like,
no,
what do
no.
you- what do you-
I like
Hey,
a
a plate of
good-
nachos
I
is good.
I like a good sandwich for my NCAA tournament. I think that's it. I don't think I'm in the minority here.
You know what's on tap for lunch on Thursday for me?
What's on tap for lunch on Thursday? Wings and pizza?
Pizza and wings,
Wow,
baby.
you're so
Pizza,
creative.
wings, and beer.
You're so creative.
Which the funny thing is, your daughter requested that because she knows what's up.
Exactly.
It's a proud dad moment.
Wings,
Honey,
easy to eat for kids.
I didn't raise no.
Honey, do you want your Cheerios and Dino Nuggets? No, Dad.
Hell no.
Can you go to Hooters and get wings?
I want a
Big
Bush
old
Light and
slab
Apple
of
Jacks.
ribs. Yeah, hell yes.
It's called the Nebraska breakfast of Bush Light Apple Jacks. If you get really creative, you actually put the Bush Light in your apple.
Hurry up
Jack.
and roll that.
That was the insinuation.
Yeah. Well, yesterday they were putting whiskey in their coffee and whiskey in their Cheerios as it was St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah.
which
Oh,
unfortunately I did not indulge in.
well, yeah,
in
you were
the
wearing
holiday.
pink.
I was wearing pink. I didn't even recognize.
You have a
There's-
green jacket today.
Yeah,
you have
'cause-
lots of green.
I know.
My daughter's 4. She doesn't know what pinching is, though. So when we got home, like I wore a green shirt for the show that I did yesterday,
Mhm.
but then I threw a hoodie on, so it doesn't look like I'm wearing green. And my wife and daughter get home, and because she does half day daycare, and my wife says, "All right, he's not wearing any green. You have to go pinch him."
Go get him.
And she came up and
Oh.
just tickled me.
Oh,
I was like, you know what? I'm fine with that.
That'll show you, pups.
Our buddy Josh here at Energy Omaha just texted me and said that was a bad food take. It's not a bad food take. When I think of the NCAA tournament, I think of turkey sandwiches. All right, respect my
Wow, he
decision.
doubled down. He went with a specific
I
sandwich.
think of I think of a nice, good old.
Something weird happened in your life around the age of 11 years old, and I don't think you've ever recovered.
I like turkey.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to that. Go with a damn burger
I
before
like-
a
I'm
turkey
just,
sandwich.
I'm just saying. I like. Can you blame a man? Likes what a man wants. All right.
I like a good turkey sandwich. What is this, a road trip? Like, what are you're not
Mayo,
just
tomato, lettuce. It's good.
Oh, you
It's
lost me at mayo.
good.
The only mayo I would care about is Zeke.
I'm not picnicking to watch the NCAA tournament.
Do you know what?
The NC2A tournament.
Got the maskers. You don't have to say it like that. I'm just saying.
Tournament.
There's different food for different sporting events. I just think that wings and Shane goes his Matt a beta male. No, what's beta about having sandwiches? I like sandwiches. Hey,
I like sandwiches too, just not during
look,
the
a
NCAA
lot of people
tournament.
are saying that my sandwich take is good. You know what was good this year?
No.
You know that inside Connor Happer joke where it's like when you go like good, like it's actually like bad.
Okay.
That's
I
the
know.
guy who has
Is-
Mount
Is
Happer.
that what the kids are talking?
That's
saying
what they're
today?
talking
Okay.
Mount Happer will be back tomorrow.
This bracket was good this year. It wasn't. It was a very. this was one of the brackets this year that it was a little bit baffling to me just because of the mistakes they made, not only on the outside looking in, because you're always going to get those mistakes, right? Every year we're going to have these teams, whether it be the college football playoff or whether it be, when you have this, whenever you have a system where it's not, rudimentary and based in numbers and based in record, when it's just based in people looking at a screen and deciding, hey, this team is better than this team because of these prerequisites that aren't objective at all, you're going to have people that are really mad about it. Okay. And that is going to happen. And I think that's something you have to battle through. But the reason why it was a little bit surprising to me about this bracket and just how meh it was the mistakes within the bracket, within the teams that got
multiple seed lines,
and just the discrepancies of, they clearly made this bracket on Thursday. There was nothing that happened on any of the days in any of the conference championship games that swayed what happened here, right? It did not matter that Creighton beat UConn, because if you're saying that Creighton beating UConn, mattered, that means that Creighton would have been a back of the end 9 seed, maybe even close to a 10 seed, and then beating DePaul. That did not make sense. Louisville being an 8 after being ranked, by the way, in the AP all year and playing really good basketball in the ACC, that did not make sense, especially when they made the ACC tournament game. When you look at, we talk about these metrics. Oh my God, the net ranking and the KenPom ranking and all that stuff and all the numbers that go into it. Okay, well, one of the best teams in the country in that regard is Gonzaga, and they beat a very, very good St. Mary's team in their conference championship. They look damn good while doing it, and they're an 8 seed. And so you reward Houston, who's a 1 seed, who more than likely will have to play a Gonzaga team that's top 10 and the KenPom ranking.
Yeah.
That's how you reward them, right? You kind of go up and down, and I don't mean to harp on you, Jimmy, right? About your
what I do,
your Kansas Jayhawks.
I don't care. We're a football school now. Spring football's going well. I have boots on the ground there.
It's one of those things where it's like,
if they lose, I'm not going to kick my dog. I would go to bed, but I'm going to stay up and watch the Mavs.
Kansas in the beginning of the year, in November, in December, was a bona fide preseason number 1. Looked like that team played.
This is
like
why
that
polls
team.
don't matter.
That's what Sam McKewon was saying.
They have not looked like that team at all. And so we're just sitting here, and it's one of those brackets where I'm like, all right, what went wrong and what needs to change? Right? Because there's Memphis is a 5 seed. I think we can all agree, especially without Tyrese Hunter, that Memphis is a team that's banged up and has not been playing good enough basketball in order to warrant being a 5 seed. And there's a reason why Colorado State is only a 2.5-point underdog. And if we look at the preview right now, I wouldn't be surprised if when we get to the actual game, that this might be a game where we're at a pick'em. And to me, when you dive deep into the committee and the athletic directors and the administrators and Bubba Cunningham being the chairman of the board, but clearly having a stake within who gets in and who gets out, something's got to change, in my opinion. I look at this and say, we're changing so many things about college basketball and I'm not saying to completely rehaul and uproot how we schedule college basketball, how we look at college basketball, but there definitely has to be a little bit of self-reflection when it comes to the committee and the decisions they made in this regard, because there's no reason why, based on all the metrics and everything that we look at, everyone's saying that West Virginia should be in and they end up out. And we look at teams who, going into a conference tournament, we thought were placed here pretty universally, and it ends up they were way farther back. I mean, the disconnect not only between the fans, but also the coaches and also the people who take the time to look at these things, it was just a little bit too far away from me to have some comfort with how, because we need to know the standard. We need to know what the committee is really looking at. We need to know what the committee finds incredibly important, right? Everyone top to bottom, top down. And I think when you look at this bracket, there is a discrepancy in what we might think is important and clearly what the committee thought was important.
Yeah, and they also, so they put out their seed list, and that seed list doesn't always align with where you think the teams say should be in the way that they're lined up, and Creighton at 33. Okay, so you're looking at where they are. That's a 9 seed, but like still being a few spots behind Gonzaga being 2 spots behind Kansas and 4 spots behind St. Mary's. Like you're looking at where some of these are. Memphis at 20, and clearly they weren't playing in a way to be 20.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at where those are on the way that they put that list together. Potentially, like you don't have one metric that you look at and say, here's how you just line these teams up 1 through 68.
Yeah.
But can you get some kind of combination between you use this metric, and humans? And I know that's kind of getting BCS-ish.
Sure.
But can you do that and you just rank them 1 through 68 and you just do pure serpentine straight through?
Maybe, but I think another factor that for me just does not resonate is the fact that sports are a ever evolutionary process, right? People change, teams change, right? It's a constant evolution of where is a team now to where's a team then. How you're playing in November is not how you're going to be playing March.
What I don't want though is for you to for November and December to not matter.
No,
because they're part of the season.
But you can restructure it in a way, in my opinion, where
that's like a third of the
season.
season, you know?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's one of those things where Colorado State is one of the best teams in the country right now. Xavier is one of the best teams in the country right now. And yes, should they be in a way punished for how they did not play well earlier in the year? Absolutely. Okay. But at the same time, when we're ranking teams, Kansas, you can look at them outside of beating Colorado to end the year twice. It did nothing to warrant having a 7 seed or even being in the conversation of having a 5 or 6 seed heading into the Big 12 conference tournament. But the reason why they are there is because we put so much stock into what happened in November. And I just think that you look at the disconnect between the college football model and the college basketball model, where I do think that there needs to be more of an emphasis on, okay, how can the fact that we base so much of conference play on those months earlier in the year bothers me, because we heading into the year, we say, oh my God, the SEC is so good. The SEC is incredible. The SEC should get 14 teams in. Well, why is that? It's because they played really well in November collectively as a conference. They played really well in December collectively as a conference. But you kind of go down the list of the SEC, there's a lot of teams who are not playing good basketball right now, who have lost plenty of games. But we just throw it out as, well, no, they're in a good conference. They're fine. They're okay. No. They're just eating each other up. Why? Because of results that happened 2.5 months ago? We just put way too much emphasis and stake. And Sam was making great points of, like, we almost encourage, teams to have this morality of playing really good opponents and them being okay losing those opponents and detracting away from playing lesser opponents to help them get ready and like get going in the middle of the year, which is why sometimes you get discrepancies over, what happened.
Yeah.
What occurred at this point and what occurred at that point. And so now, am I saying to entirely base the seeding projections off of what teams are doing at the end of February or March?
No, that's not what I was hearing.
No. But at the same time, the amount of stake and revenue and just care we put into results that happened so long ago from teams that are playing at such a different level now, whether it be better for worse, bothers me. And I think this bracket is indicative of that.
Yeah.
And indicative of the fact that if West Virginia was playing in the SEC, I don't know if the results of their year would have been that much different, and they probably would have been in the tournament. And why is that the case? Because of what happened 4 months ago.
Right. I'm wondering if there needs to be a baseline win percentage in your conference, Because then the way the schedules are lined up, that means you have to have so much success over the last 2 months of the season.
It's just too much for me that a team like West Virginia can go 10-8 in the Big 12 and be completely left out.
Well, yeah.
And a team like Texas can go 6-12 in the SEC, and they are in, and they are good, and they beat them out on the bubble. And why is that the case? Because the SEC had a damn good non-con in November and December. That's why. That's what it boiled down to.
Yeah.
It didn't really, with West Virginia not making the tournament, we'll go to break right here, but I got to make this point. West Virginia not making the tournament had a lot to do with the other teams in their conference not beating enough teams in the non-con.
Yeah.
Because if the Big 12 had beaten enough teams in the non-con, we would have looked at the Big 12 more favorably, which would have given West Virginia more of an advantage. I don't like the fact that West Virginia now has to be reliant on the performance of other teams in their conference.
On November 29th.
On November 29th. It makes, there's too much stock in that, in my opinion. All righty. Hey, we'll take a little break here, talk a little baseball, and then we'll get into two great interviews coming up at the 9 o'clock hour. Brian Christopherson and Andy Kendeigh. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to 1620 The Zone. The Happy Gilmore 2 trailer just released. It apparently will not be coming out in theaters because only on Netflix. I'm sure that was news that was already out into the world before I just read that. That's a trend that I want to stop immediately. Remaking old movies way too long ago with the same cast of characters that are probably way too old now to be doing.
Where you come back later and give them a sequel.
The only one that's really worked is Top Gun Maverick. That's the only one where I've been like, hell yeah, that was awesome. And
Rocky 2 is pretty good.
Well, coming back like a long time.
Later.
Oh, you mean coming back? Okay.
I'm more a fan though. I like what Creed did. I'm a fan with what Creed did. Like
yes,
Creed
that was
did
a new take
something
on it, yeah.
a totally different take.
Yeah.
You know, Star Wars has somewhat failed in that regard of recycling things.
His email's about to light up.
Absolutely, they have not. There have been hits and misses. I will fight you on any Star Wars take you have.
So no, it's okay.
But I'm here for
talking about bad trends, give me some good. Give me some good trends, Mr. Caleb Henry, when it regards to our NCAA bracket, because everybody loves the trends nowadays. Everybody loves in the last 18 years, this team at this place at this time has lost this game. Give me your nuggets. I love your nuggets.
All right, so it's always going to be popular to pick a 12 over a 5. So when you're looking at your bracket, I'm going to look at the 11s, 12s, and the 13s. The 6-11 game over the last, I think it's 6 years, has been split 50-50.
Ooh, okay.
So you're probably going to want to pick 2 11s.
All right.
Probably going to want to pick 2 11s.
Even playing 11s?
Well, the play-in, remember, every year that they've had the play-in, there's been at least one of them that has made the Sweet 16.
There you go.
So that's where some of it can come from. When you're looking at the 12s, you're going to want to pick 1 or 2. And that's just an every year thing. It's super popular, but also it's a weak slate of 5s, particularly Memphis, like we've talked about.
Very well, especially with injuries, yes.
The 13s, this one I found interesting, listening to a show out of Vegas. Over the last 8 years, the 13s have 8 wins. That amounts to about 1 every year. So you're going to want to pick a 13.
Okay. To make the Sweet 16 or just a 13
just to win one.
So
and then from there it's your matchup, you know? If you're playing another double-digit seed, whatever, you start to look at your matchup. Now, for Haslam metrics, and I love following Haslam on social media.
Sure.
There's a 10-35 rule. The eventual national champion was top 10 in offensive efficiency, top 35 in defensive efficiency every season for the past decade. 7 teams this year fit that criteria. So when you're looking at who you pick for your national champion, you will want it to come from this group of 7.
Okay. Give it to me.
Duke, Auburn, Florida, Houston, Texas Tech, Alabama, Arizona.
Highest seed there is Arizona, who's a 4, followed up by Texas Tech, who is a 3. And then you have a group of 2s and 1s as well. So that's an interesting one. I think we focus maybe sometimes too much on the single game trends and whatnot. Look, I'm going to tell you something right now. There has only been one time where I had a great bracket, and that's when I picked Kansas to win a couple of years ago, Jimmy. I ended up being
did that in 2008,
98 percentile on the ESPN brackets, and it's just because I picked Kansas to win. So if you want to win your bracket pool, you got to focus in on getting the winners. A lot of bad things can happen.
Can I give you really quick a few rules?
One more.
Very quickly. No team west of Texas has won since 1977.
Yeah.
No seed higher than 8 has made the title game.
Okay.
Last 20 champs have been ranked in the top 12 of the Week 6 poll.
Oh,
that's Tennessee,
Week 6 poll.
Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, Auburn, Marquette, Kansas, Iowa State, Alabama, Purdue, Duke. Last 19 of 22 champs have a Ken Pom top 20 adjusted efficiency percentage plus a top 40 adjusted defensive.
Yes.
Last 21 of 22 champs have either been UConn or top 3 in the Ken Pom. That means Florida or Duke fits all of those rules.
Florida or Duke are people to go with. I'll give you another one. 3 of the last 4 tournaments have seen a 15 upset at 2. Good thing we're rooting for one in Omaha. And we maybe we'll touch on that a little bit when Andy Kendeigh comes on at 9:45. But before that, we'll be talking to the always incredible Brian Christopherson up next year on Gary and Matt. Getting a lot of feedback here on my take
Sandwiches?
that I enjoy to eat turkey sandwiches for my spread when it comes to being a bum and watching the NCAA tournament all day long. And we bring in a guest who I know will very much enjoy all the basketball that will be coming his way. It's Brian Christopherson from Huskers 24/7. Brian, your ideal food for when you are watching the NCAA tournament this week?
It's probably a run to like Panda Express for some Kung Pao chicken or something.
Nice.
Maybe go with the bigger plate where you get the 3 portions instead of 2. It feels like that sort of situation, I'd say.
Were you the type of guy where for Christmas, Chinese food or just Asian food in general was always an option for you to be eating?
Not really, no.
Okay.
So that's probably why
you do it for the tournament.
And I know Panda Express is as authentic as it gets, of course. So, yeah, that's just what came to mind. I wasn't ready for that question, and I thought, what would I maybe eat today for lunch? And that's my answer.
Hell, we should get you a sponsorship. I mean, that would be quite incredible. You would use and abuse that thing. Hey, I got a question for you. Your take just on Nebraska basketball having a really, really tough year, going up and down, but then deciding to play in this postseason tournament, the Crown, which I think at first we thought that it was a requirement for them to do, but now it's kind of, I mean, there are other teams that would be ahead of them that also would be required to do it that are no longer doing it. So definitely they're deciding to do it on their own volition. Your take on it, do you put stock in it? And what do you think the general reaction has been so far and maybe as we get closer to this event?
You know what? When the story was posted yesterday about who they're playing, and maybe it was just a curiosity because you learn that thing, don't give it away in the headline sometimes. So people clicked on it. Actually, a lot of people are reading that story. So I guess there was some intrigue about what are they doing? Who is it against?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a pretty lukewarm, reaction to the whole thing. I don't mind that they're doing it at all.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't, interfere with your portal proceedings.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think they would do anything that's going to jeopardize that piece of it. And I know they've put in a lot of research, and there's already probably an understanding from coaches across the country about guys that were going to go into the portal anyway. And I don't know that there's going to be a ton of surprises, like as the names officially go in. So I think people just need to understand the portal, which opens March 24th, which goes on during this thing. I mean, they've been doing the homework on that, I think, for a long time, and are probably set with a plan of how they want to attack it. And they thought we can do both, and it's not that much of a juggling act. So as long as they don't interfere with that, because that's the big enchilada, is getting the right guys in here for next year. But I also understand sometimes you have a closeness to a team and you like to finish it out and maybe get the bad taste out of your mouth of how this season ended.
Is it a benefit that I know it's happening at the same time that the portal is open, but is it a benefit that this college basketball crown is only going on for a week? So it's not like it's potentially a long drawn out thing and you're looking at, okay, well, if they keep winning, then it's another week you're spending in Vegas, and you're doing this over a long period of time, to where it is you're just there. You could be one and done, but it's over the course of this 1 week in Vegas, but you can still have everything set for who you're making your phone calls to, and like you said, most likely know who's going to be in the portal.
Yeah, I think so. And it's also it's well done, I guess, as far as the calendar goes with TV viewing, because it's sort of like mid-tier bowl games. Yeah. Like you can just have them on in the background, right? And maybe you're not dialed into it, and it's not the thing you're going to talk to all your buddies about, but it's there, and it's something you can consume during the middle of the day. And so, it starts on that Monday right after we're down to the Final Four, and that's kind of an empty space, like leading up to the actual semifinal games. And so for the real hoops heads out there, they might be like, oh, okay, there's a game on. I'll have it on while I'm doing something else. And so I think it does kind of fit that bill as well, as, because the NIT, I haven't looked at their scheduling exactly for this year, but in the past, it has sometimes felt like it's butting up head to head with like the NCAA tournament. Like you're getting first round games of the NIT like mixed in with what's going on with March Madness, and a neutral observer is like, who cares? You know, like I'm just not. I only have so much bandwidth for hoops, so maybe the timing of it will draw a few more viewers. But I do think you make a good point in your question. It's only a week, and heck, it could be only 1 day or 2 days if you don't play well.
Hey, so, spring games are back in the headline, right? Dion said some pretty, I mean, I don't want to say bad. Like, I think that some coaches have maybe thought of the idea of inviting in another team and having them practice like you do in the NFL, but he just went out yesterday and said it out loud. And then Fran Brown of Syracuse went out and kind of doubled down on Twitter and said, hey, we'd be willing to do that. My question to you is, do you think that Matt Rule might have regretted of opening up this Pandora's box of spring game and everybody's opinion on it? Because it's become an incredibly hot topic now in college football. And I don't know how many people had that on their bingo card.
Yeah. It feels like it's one of those topics, where it's March, so you're kind of looking for that stuff.
Yeah.
And
good point.
I do think, I don't think Rule regrets it. I mean, he says what he wants to say, and he's got strong opinions on stuff and has his reasons for doing it, and it's fine if someone else has a different opinion. Mm-hmm. This has been an idea that Dion's talking about that I think a lot of people have sort of floated in their mind. Could you pull that off? I remember going back far enough where there used to be like some concern, like, well, if you played this preseason game in April against another school, it was going to like affect the preseason rankings and stuff like that, because people would put like a lot of stock into it. And so I think we're a little bit beyond that. I have to be honest. I kind of like it. I've always been sort of like whatever can give us some juice in the off season. I've expressed that on this show before. Like I'm a big fan of like having spring football, like actual football talk in March and April, as opposed to some of this like, let's just delete it and go right to OTAs. Like I'm not in favor of that. And there's a little bit of selfishness to that for me, but I was kind of glad when Rule the other day said that he didn't like it either. I think it's important for these kids this time of year, especially the younger guys. They can actually do some hitting and get out there, and it's not just mat drills, and it's real football, and it helps them develop. And if you were able to figure it out where you could throw a mini scrimmage together against another school, I mean, that would fire up those guys, even more, I would think. Sure. So I'm not completely against the idea. The only thing is, as you guys know, these things get thrown out, and there's always like 3 or 4 layers to it that maybe aren't considered of why it wouldn't work. And so sure. I'd have to ponder that a bit.
Hey, Brian, we heard Matt Rule talk exactly a week ago, almost, if you had a couple of hours, but he talked for 40 minutes. What did you glean from that TED talk that he put on at the Hawk Center about the way the spring is going to go?
I gleaned that it's going to be like his other springs, except for that one public event that we won't see, the spring game. I think that otherwise, they want it to be really physical. They want to test some young guys. This is going to be a huge camp in the trenches. Obviously, he led that with that injury list right off the bat, and people couldn't help but notice, okay, there's like 4 key offensive linemen on there that are still rehabbing. I think at that particular position group, it could be one of those blessing in disguise type deals where you have some younger guys like Sam Sledge, like Jason Machachok, who are going to get their crack at it with a lot of reps. And we'll see. We'll see if one of those guys can make a move, and sort of by the end of spring, going into summer, we're talking about 1 or 2 of them as like he could start, or he could be like the 6th or 7th guy. So I think they're going to get after it same way with some scrimmaging and all that. I know some people are a little alarmed by the length of the injury list. I think it's maybe a little longer than some years past, but I also was wondering if some of that is usually when I've covered this team, that stuff gets patched together throughout. Like we'll have like, okay, these 3 guys are out. We'll report on a Thursday. Then you'll figure out 2 more on a Tuesday. So we just got it all at once. So I would caution people that maybe it's not as that much longer than it's ever been, actually.
And that too, along with the fact that those injuries had been over a long period of time. Corcoran
Yes.
Prohaska had been hurt for quite a while.
It wasn't all during mat drills.
Yeah, it all just didn't happen all at once. And I think it's important for us to put that out there just so, people who may not be aware are aware of that. I love talking to you about like macro college football stuff because I just feel like you have a really good ear and eye for a lot of what's going on outside of the state that affects, Nebraska football. Something that I've been incredibly curious about is the spring transfer portal window. When it opens, what do you think the activity is going to be? And because of these NIL rules that are going to be applied in July, do you anticipate it maybe being more wilder than the winter window because of the money that is going to be front loaded from these collectives?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know that it's going to be. I actually don't think it'll be more wild, but I'm really intrigued by it.
Me too.
The reason I say that is because December was nuts. I mean, it really was. And there's so many guys that made their move. And I know we always have that possibility that a guy could make a move and then he could like move again. Like there's this sort of stuff that can happen. And there are going to be some guys from certain programs that realize like, okay, I'm not on the 105. I got to go on. I don't know if as many schools, this is where I'm not as researched in it as I wish I were. I don't know how many schools are in the same boat as Nebraska or even close to it as far as like, so Nebraska has like 125, 130 guys still. I think a lot of schools are probably closer to their number if I had to guess. And so I don't know. I just don't think there's going to be quite as much movement because I think, Nebraska made like 16 moves and I think all those guys are pretty sturdy. Like I'm here, and I have to think that's the way it is at a lot of schools. There'll be that occasional guy who flips again, but I think a lot of guys, that was the decision in December. That was the big, like, early signing day for college guys. And there will be some movement, but I don't think it's going to be quite as crazy. But it will be – it's like one of those things where you're learning as you go. Like, you just don't know until you get to certain things, like the amount of traction certain things have. You think something's going to be bigger and it's not, and then it's a wild time in college football, which is why I always say I like that Matt Rule, when he speaks, is always a guy who seems like go with it, adapt to it. It's that adapt or die philosophy, and I feel like at least they've got that mindset over there, and that gives you a fighting chance.
So Rule had talked about early in the, right after the Pinstripe Bowl or whereabout in that range, that he sat down with, every player and said, hey, this is where you would be on the 105, right? Now that you have Pat Stewart walking into the situation, and now that's kind of his job, he's the evaluator. Do you think that that might have an impact on what the spring portal might look like for Nebraska in terms of guys entering it? Because Pat Stewart now is a new set of eyes, and it's his job to evaluate and, decide on some talent here. Do you think that, because you have a new guy like that, there's going to be some differing opinions, and the guys who might have been in the 105 may now be out because of how Stewart looks at it?
I don't know, but I think it's going to be that Rule values what Pat Stewart has to say about what he's seeing, but also like Phil Snow and like what Mike Eckler sees. Like, think of the press conference last week when Rule's talking about Eckler and his evaluating skills, and he brought up a specific player. We'll just use him as an example, Bryce Turner. And Bryce is a guy who, like, a lot of people might have kind of forgotten about. He wouldn't get talked about in our usual conversations about like the two deeper stuff. But Eckler sees a guy, I think he was like 175 when he came in here, ran a 10.2, and now he's up to 210 pounds. And he thinks I can maybe use that guy on special teams. And Eckler at Tennessee actually made a lot of hay with guys who weren't starters, and top of depth chart guys. And so I think that could be as interesting as the Pat Stewart component. It's a good question, but I think it's like all those guys. And, they're getting more of a look at, he can fit over here. Like as Rule says, it's not about what the guy can't do. It's what can he do. And there's going to be some guys we're not talking about that are like 96 through 105. I think especially on those special teams units, that's going to put them inside the cut, I guess.
Sure.
Rule also talked about how he said, we've always kind of built towards year 3, and anyone can look at his previous stops, the jump from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. But how different is this year 3 for Matt Rule with so many staff changes, so many personnel changes for players, the new rules with the roster limit, the new rules with rev share that are being navigated? This is unlike any year 3 he's had before.
No, there's no question about that. And that's why you have to have I'm the type of person who can move with the moving floor beneath me. Like I will go with it. And that's where I like his mindset. I do think though, there's a nucleus of second and third year players that have gone through now like 3 mat drills, and they're going to be important. It's those guys. We talk so much about like the portal guys, but it's your guys like Donovan Jones and your Caleb Bennings and some guys who have been around this a little bit. And now they have some confidence. And the real hope here is that group, Sam Sledge, I mentioned earlier, like they push everybody. They either push a guy out of a chair or they're making him sweat for it. And we could use the secondary as an example. There's like 4 or 5 veterans we could all name off that are back.
Sure.
I really hope that's competitive as heck. And you have some of those younger guys. I'm not saying that someone gets knocked out of their job, but we're talking about it. Or there's a possibility, like, because someone is playing that well, that's like a redshirt freshman or sophomore now, that you have to consider him. And so I think that's going to be as big as anything for this year 3 for Rule, is those guys who have came up through the system, and hopefully they've developed to a point where now they're ready to contribute, where you feel like this is a team beyond just like 35 to 40 good guys. It's a team where you feel like, okay, we got like 55 to 60 we feel like we can really roll out there now, that are ready to play. So we'll see if they can get to that point.
Brian Christopherson of Huskers 24/7. So back to what you were saying, right? They've taken these guys, kind of Rules dudes, high school recruits, some younger portal acquisitions. And, for a very long time, and it was mainly Gary who always made this great point that Nebraska's a developmental program, right? They're taking these guys and they're developing them. Now that you're in year 3, and with some of the things that Rule said in that 40-minute presser, do you find that there is a shift between them being a developmental program now into an execution program?
Yeah, he said that too. Basically, it's got to be about production over potential. I think was his exact line, which I like that line because we talk about potential a lot. I write that word a lot, and it's been there for like 10 years, and so it does have to be that moment, I think, where you jump over that bar. And obviously, there's going to be some guys who are sort of behind the curtain who are like your red shirts who, yes, they are potential laden, and that's what they are for now. But there has to be a large percentage on this roster where it's like that guy can go out there and he can help us now. We always use wide receivers, a perfect example. For off seasons aplenty, we've talked about, having like 8 or 9 guys that you could roll out there since the Frost era. That's been like the dream, like in the summer months, talking about that. Then you get to the year and it's like 2 or 3. So can they actually do that now with a wide receiver core we're excited about? Can they do that at like tight end? You've got some guys coming back from injury, but you've also got like Lyndon Meyer, and I think Harburg's a really interesting piece. Like all these position groups you can go through and you can see where there should be some guys who are at that point where they're ready to produce. But you got to have it if it's going to be a year 3 like the other ones that Rule has had. But I do think that's like a good thing that's in the air, that he's had that success on his resume, because I do think it kind of feeds that idea over there. Like it's time, like this is the time when it pops. And that's not a bad thing, I think, to have going on in your walls right now.
Sure. Hey, Brian, before we let you go here, give me your NCAA tournament team. Who is going to win it? Who is going to take it? Who's your dog that you're riding? Not your underdog, just your team that you're going with.
My dog. Yeah, I got
Dog.
you. I had a boring bracket.
It is
Not
it
a
is
lot
a
of
year for that.
upsets. Yeah, I picked Auburn over Houston in the final. I had St. John's and Alabama also in the final four. Kind of rolled through it fast.
Yep.
And didn't crunch the numbers a lot, but I tend to do better
When you do it that
when
way.
I do that. So we'll see.
Pure instinct.
Pure instinct, pure gut, pure determination. Brian Christopherson on every single Tuesday at 9 o'clock here on 1620. Brian, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in the future, all right?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Talk to you, Brian. Always a great guy. Husker 24/7 writer. Also an aficionado when it comes to all things writing and sports. Hey, Brian, we talked a lot of college football there. We talked a little bit of college basketball, but I got a question for you. Are we in the rare instance where college football is ahead of college basketball in this one regard? Let's talk about it. Coming up next here on Gary and Matt. You're listening to 1620 The Zone. It was a nightmare start this morning for the Chicago Cubs as they had nearly as many errors as they did hits as they fall to the LA Dodgers in Japan. Yamamoto and Ohtani both looked incredible today for the Dodgers, who, by the way, won without Mookie Betts. Nightmare start for the Cubs in 2 games that are going to be played in Japan that are actually going to matter in September, which sucks because if you know about the Cubs, it's every game at this point, especially with how tight the wild card in NL Central might be, will matter. Talk about nightmare starts. The Nebraska Cornhusker baseball team will look to bounce back from that today. They're going to play Pepperdine at 5:00 Central Time.
Pepperdine's bad.
Pepperdine is not a good baseball team, but if we're going to be honest, neither is Nebraska baseball right now, as they are 1-5 and 7-11 to start the year. This was a team, by the way, that was ranked to begin the season with a ton of returning starters in the lineup and plenty of depth of the bullpen. At least we were so told.
And then Mason McConaughey.
And then Mason McConaughey happened. And so now, if I were to trust anyone to pull this thing out of the fire, Will Bolt and, Rob Childress are 2 very good coaches who have recovered from tougher starts to the season in the past, but definitely so far been a major disappointment for Nebraska baseball. But Carson Jassa will start on the bump today for the Huskers. He had a really good start last week against Wichita State. And
he throws hard.
He's a hard thrower, and they're going to need these 2 wins for sure against Pepperdine, or it's going to get really, really, really uncomfortable in terms of the rest of the outlook of the season. And you're going to need it because you play USC and what will already be a very important Big Ten series early in the season. Okay, so I gave you a little tease.
Yes. Let's hear this tease.
Before we went into our last break, and what would be a quicker segment here, but it is a good point to make. I feel like at this point, football has had their hands on the wheel in terms of college sports, okay? And that's not a hot take or anything. That's not even even an I think. That is a fact, okay? Everything that has been changing in college sports as of late has been with football on the front of the mind.
Right.
Okay. And they get to call the shots. And Oklahoma and Texas didn't move to the Big Ten because they want their baseball teams to be better. SEC because they want their baseball teams to be better. USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington didn't move to the Big Ten because they want their gymnastics to be better. Okay. It was because of football. But I think, funny enough, even though football has been at the front of the mind of everybody, it's been basketball who has benefited greatly from this shift in not only just conferences, realignment, but also paying players. We are seeing high level of competition in college basketball because you have guys who are sticking around longer because they can make money now. It used to be the one and done mindset used to happen because these players didn't get one single dime. And not only did they not get one single dime, unless you were in the ACC, you were not the most important athlete on campus, right? Which is exactly why, North Carolina and Duke and in part Kentucky, where they always got the best talent because they were the guys, right? And other places, the football players were the guys, right? But now, because these players are getting money, they're staying here longer. And they're not getting egregious amounts of money either, where they're becoming unlikable, right? Or at least not a lot of these guys, or at least not at the level of football. And so college basketball, in my opinion, the product and the outlook of it hasn't been stronger than it is now in years because you have continuity, you have familiarity, you have similar players, you have similar rosters, you have continued storylines. You think I'm on track there?
Well, the difference is you have the combination of that to where you're staying in college.
Yes.
But there's so much more movement because of the transfer portal.
Sure.
And that's the part where you look at a team like Louisville who brings in a new coach and you have an entirely different roster. You have Kentucky and Arkansas with brand new rosters because of coaching changes. Sure. You're going to have Nebraska next year with almost an entirely new roster because you had so many guys that brought in on transfer portal. In 6 years, Fred Hoiberg has had one guy that graduated after playing his entire career at Nebraska. Yeah. That was Thor. So who was a holdover from Tim Miles. So yeah, I agree that it's better for guys to stick around longer in college because you can make that money now.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to make that jump You could get better and improve
Sure.
your draft stock
Yes.
and improve your future dollars while making money now. But when you're looking at the overall product, it's hard for fans to know who's on what team every single year
But
because of so much
Good
portal
point.
movement.
But that's a great point. But I think, funny enough, the NBA has kind of programmed us, though, as a sport fan, to kind of be used to that mobility.
Only over the last decade or so.
Yeah, but
I mean,
that's enough. I mean, this stuff started.
The NBA's gotten out of control with it.
Oh, yeah, but that's been the regularity. And so I'm just saying, I think basketball, you don't see the movement you see in football and college football that you do in the NFL. You see the movement in the NBA similar to what you see in college basketball, which is why once I was just kind of NBA, that's not the point. Here's the point. College basketball has benefited greatly. College basketball hasn't been overly problematic or not nearly as problematic as college football has been. But college football is ahead of them in this one regard. And they proved it in the college football playoff last year. And Jimmy, you said something to me off air that
it was the F word, and I'm sorry.
No. That got me going. You said, why won't anybody say the obvious part out loud? North Carolina got into the tournament
because they're North Carolina.
Because they're North Carolina.
If they were NC State, they would not have gotten in.
They would have not have gotten in. And that's where college football is
That's the argument right there. There's nothing else to it.
College basketball, because you know what?
Indiana v. Alabama.
They said, damn your brand. They said, you know what? SMU's had the better season. Clemson, we're gonna honor them winning the Big 12 championship. It does not matter that you are this more historical program.
It's a good thing the Lakers weren't on the bubble.
Yeah, that you've won more national championships, that you've had more success. No. We look at these seasons singularly. Did you play good enough football to make this tournament? Did you perform better than this team did? What are your comparisons? College football said, I don't give a damn about what you did in your past. You don't deserve to be here this year. College basketball, and not just from a North Carolina perspective, but also from a Kansas perspective, they did not put their foot down. They did not say, hey, we don't care that you're UCLA. You still have to pay for your rocky end of the year and your 6-game losing streak in the middle. You shouldn't have this high seed. Now, I do think UCLA should be a 7. That's not the best example. But they did not put their foot down this year. That needs to happen in the future. Okay?
They just wanted a regional with Self, Cal.
That's what they want.
Patino and Gary Sharp. That's all they wanted.
That's what they want. And Chris Crutchfield, who's one hell of a coach.
And John Gruden apparently now.
Do you feel like this is a one-off, though, on the two tournaments and the way they went with that? I know in the NCAA tournament, brand power always carries a lot.
It's still a business.
In the college football playoff, this is the first year of the 12 team.
Yes.
So I don't know if it's going to regress to the mean, because you saw SEC favoritism.
Oh my God!
A lot.
I'm not acting as if college football has been sans from this sin.
No.
In the last decade.
No, you're just bringing it into basketball.
That's why I'm asking if you're looking at this as this one year they did it. They did a good job of not looking at the name on the jersey, or if this is something that football can potentially continue to do, to where it is based on the results, not just you went 9-3 and you play in the SEC.
Man, I hope and pray. I hope and pray that everything is merit. I hope and pray that every year we look at the schedule and we look at the results and we care about the scores.
Imagine
and we
that.
Say,
the games.
Hey, it doesn't matter what you did 10, 15 years ago. We base things off of this year. We are trying to find the best team this year.
Mm-hmm.
What you did in 2008, and 2009, and 2010, it does not matter. It does not matter. We are in 2025, and next year, when we're in 2026,
we'll be a year older.
You will be a year older, and we won't give a damn about what you did the year prior. Now, will the preseason top 25, come out, and will that be based on last year, and will that affect things for too long, and maybe poison our nines in terms of recruiting and whatnot? Yes, that's a whole other radio show. But we've given college basketball a lot of credit, and I think a lot of the sly comments and the remarks and this is crazy and college sports is being ruined has been thrown onto the top of college football. And you know what? Rightfully so. But I want to give them credit and say they did something that showed that they had a backbone last season that college basketball couldn't do this year.
I just don't know if it's a long-term thing that they'll do.
And neither do I.
Because obviously, like
Neither do I.
You mean the right thing?
They didn't do it
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
They didn't do it the year before. And I know Florida State for the championships Nebraska had.
Fongway brings it up. It's a good comment.
Like Florida State was the team of the 90s for all of their success. Yeah. Like they're that's a brand. I know it hasn't necessarily been year over year, but you saw the SEC get a lot of favoritism out of that because of the jersey, because of the patch that was on there.
Sure.
And I think you're going to continue to see that.
But
yes, for this 1 year, I think the College Football Playoff Committee did it in a way that said, yes, Indiana,
sure.
you're in.
You're in.
Like those types of things. I completely agree with that. I just don't think long term they're going to continue to say, you went 11-1, this team went 10-2.
Yeah.
But it's Ole Miss, and they've got Lane Kiffin on Twitter.
Sure. And that's another thing too. Like, the Alabama Indiana argument and just the Alabama argument in general. Let's not make any mistake about it. Alabama was going to be in if they had beaten Oklahoma, right? I mean, that they did that to themselves. But there was literal analysts on ESPN, guys who get paid hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars
to be SEC honks,
who were banging on the chair and saying it was a travesty that Alabama didn't get in to the playoff. And Vongway says in the comment, what about FSU 2 seasons ago in college football? Well, you know what? That was a different landscape. And it's a good comment, Vongway, but that's a 4-team college football playoff. And once again, I'm not acting as if college football has had their hands clean for forever in this regard, right? But for this season, for this one instance, college football did the right thing. College basketball didn't.
Do you know what's wild about 2 years ago? If there was a 12-team playoff with like the current rules, Florida State has a bye.
Yeah.
They have a bye into the quarterfinals.
How life comes at you fast, man. How life comes at you, and it just smacks you right in the face when you least know about it. But I just, it's just one of those things, man, where it's hard not to feel for Darren DeVries, first-year head coach at West Virginia. You would have loved for him.
Potential 1 year coach, 1 year tenure at West Virginia.
You would have loved for him to have that on his resume to say, hey, I came here in year one and I turned this program around.
I think they just hate John Denver.
And now we have the West Virginia governor on ESPN right now that I'm looking at him saying that it's an absolute travesty and that they're going to sue people about West Virginia.
And he's already the smartest person on the screen since you got Stephen A on there with him.
It's one of those things where it's a very rare instance where college football, they did the right thing in moving forward, and college basketball just absolutely didn't. And it's just a damn shame that in this lead up, these are the things that we're going to talk about, and not necessarily getting into more of the nitty gritty
until Thursday. Then it's just basketball.
At the same time, I say that I'm the one who controls what we talk about, so maybe that's my fault as well.
And besides, none of these teams are winning anything. This all doesn't matter after the weekend.
It's just when people deserve things and they don't get them, it sucks.
Yeah, I like a meritocracy.
Yeah,
I know from experience.
And West Virginia deserved it, and they didn't get it. And damn it, they should have. Hey, talking about people who deserve a lot of great things in their life, we're going to bring on one of my favorite guests, Mr. Andy Kendeigh from KETV. He's boots on the ground, but is he in Lexington? Is he in Providence? Where is Andy? It's almost like Carmen Sandiego. We'll figure that out later here on 1620 The Zone. Matt McMaster here, joined with Caleb Henry because Gary Sharp is out on the road with the Omaha Mavericks. And what is one of the greater sport weekends in the Omaha metropolitan area as two teams 30 blocks away from each other are competing in the best tournament in all of the land. And so we ask the question, where in the world is Andy Kendeigh covering for KETV?
I'm sorry, Andy. You really wanted to get that one in.
It's a
there.
Carmen
Oh,
San
my
Diego
goodness.
joke. That was a good one, Andy.
That's good. Yes, I am going to be. Guess where I'm going to be?
Providence.
Nebraska.
Oh,
Omaha.
Nebraska.
Wait, why?
Big upset. Here's the deal. This we had Creighton and UNO. We had to prioritize those two tournaments. UNO going for the first time. We got to go, right?
Obviously, right.
Got to go.
Yeah, got it.
And it made sense to send Lauren. She's been covering them all year, and she was up in Sioux Falls. And then Matt has been Mr. Creighton for a whole bunch. So Matt is going out to Kentucky. Actually, Matt should be landing any second.
Oh,
I saw he was out there
somebody
early.
has to anchor. Yeah. His flight was wheels up at 6 a.m., so he had to be at the station.
Lord.
So somebody's got to anchor every day. So that's what we're doing, which is good. And and this is the tournament these days for local TV. A lot of times they just send one person, and let's be honest, guys, I'm no spring chicken. It's a young person's game, and I'm fine. I don't want to be, it's all this equipment and all this stuff. So it's good. Get the kids out there and give them a reward for covering all these teams all these years. So this is good. That's the way I'm doing.
There's a reason why they hire young and train hard at KETV. So Andy Kendeigh can sit back, relax, and do what he does best, which is anchor, which is might be a slight insult to you because you actually do incredible camera work over there at KETV.
Well, I'll tell you this though. This is so today, it's kind of a juggling act because here's the thing: we were really hoping for Thursday, Friday games from the men, right?
Yeah.
Now this is really, from a scheduling standpoint for local television, it's like, okay, we're going to be drinking through a fire hose the next couple of days trying to squeeze everything in because both games are Thursday. I don't know if Bill Ramby has issued a hooky alert, but he certainly should because Thursday, I think, I'll just give you permission. Just miss school. I'll sign your note because there's going to be so much going on trying to squeeze. Yeah. And then Wednesday, you've got practice days with both teams. So you're going to try to fit in all this stuff. And then obviously the women play. Nebraska women play on Friday and the Creighton women play on Saturday. It's like, come on, people. Couldn't we space these things out a little bit? The women did a nice job of spacing it out, but the men did not.
I'm sure that the news department is going to be thrilled when you say that you're going to need 6 minutes for sports tonight. I'm sure that'll float over like a lead balloon.
No doubt. And then, now with all these, let's be honest, 10 years ago, we didn't have a 4 o'clock show. So we have an hour-long 4, so they're going to contribute there. And then we have a 5 and a 6 and a 9 and a 10. And so, there's a lot of content. Steve, do you see now that the veteran mind of my head going, you know what, maybe I'll just stay home and anchor. That's a good idea.
Hey. And there were no favors with that both being on Thursday either with the first game and then late at night on Thursday.
Yes, too.
It's like the first game of the day and the second to last game of the day. Or third
it's third to last game of the day. Crazy.
Yeah.
9:45. Local tip out in Providence, 8:45 here Central. That sea legs, talk about them. That'll be a factor. Hey, you've been in this market for quite a while. You've been following these teams. Let's be honest here. Did you ever think that Omaha could make a run like this? Did you see it coming? Were you caught off guard? What is the stakes of this? It's such an incredible story.
Well, it is. And I was there the day that they cut football and they cut wrestling, and that was one of the darker days in that athletic program's history. And to see where that mood was in that room then, and then to see that mood in that room at Mammal Hall on Sunday, it is, talk about a complete transformation in a span of just over a decade. I thought it could happen, and they have gotten close. But to see it come together and the way it kind of came together this year has purely been a magical ride, a team that was picked to finish 8th. Nobody really expected much. You you lost one of your best players, you're the best player to moving on, and then you're like, oh, how are you going to replace them? And then to see this team come together and really peak at the right time and just roll through the conference season and then do what they had to do. I mean, how many times you see conference champions stumble up in Sioux Falls, but they got it done.
Yeah.
And props to them. And I'll tell you, this is what college basketball is all about. That Sunday gathering. Whatever happens this week happens, right? And if they're able to pull off the 7%, the 15 beaten twos, awesome. That's great. But to see Sunday and to see that room overflowing with pride and people, literally overflowing with people. I mean, they couldn't even fit everybody in that room on Sunday. It was really cool to see. And talking to Adrian Dahl and Coach Crutchfield on Sunday, just to see the pride in their faces. And,
absolutely.
And it was just a neat deal, and good for UNO to have their moment. And they've caught, if you're a neutral follower, and we were talking to Crutch about this yesterday. If you're a neutral follower and you're at the game on Thursday in Providence and you don't have a horse in the race,
sure,
you're going to lean towards Omaha. You've seen it a million times. You go to these arenas, you see it here in Omaha when teams come here. The Norfolk State of the world, pulling off an upset. So it can happen. And Crutch told us a good story yesterday when we were talking to him. So he was at Oklahoma in Philadelphia a little over 10 years ago, I think it was a dozen years ago. And he said they were getting ready for their opening game, and he kept hearing the crowd go nuts. And he couldn't understand what the heck was going on. And he just thought Georgetown was taking care of business as the 2 seed. Well, it was the opposite. Florida Gulf Coast, Dunk City, was, and he was in the arena. And so he kind of looked at me. He's like, it can happen. I'm like, I was there because that's where Creighton was.
Sure. When
Creighton beat Cincinnati and then lost to Duke. That was also the weekend they moved and announced the move to the Big East Conference. So can it happen? Of course it can happen. Yeah. It happens with more frequency now in the last 6-7 years too. And obviously the odds are long, and they'll have to play a near perfect game to pull it off. But it can happen, and that's the truth.
Funny enough, Gary Sharp on the call for Florida Gulf Coast in that game as well. So that's a.
Oh, see, he has experience calling that.
Exactly.
One of the fun things about the smaller teams when they get in, especially if it's the first time, but maybe it's the first time that they're introduced to the nation, it's that little novelty. And for Omaha, it's been the trash cans, but obviously it's been the play that they did through the Summit League. You brought up Florida Gulf Coast and all the dunking there, but you also saw some novelty at different times. Steph Curry with Davidson, Jimmer Fredette with BYU. For this program, and they've sent out the care packages. We saw John Gruden open up a care package. This program in this city, I know that this city with Creighton has had the feelings of this, but this program in this university, it's almost like when you had the dark days of cutting the programs and making the promise of going to Division I, that promise it feels fulfilled, and it feels like you said on Sunday, you get that feeling of euphoria that you're here, you're actually part of it now that you get to go to the big dance.
No question about it. And I'll tell you what else it means. It means increased admissions, increased in terms of applications because of the increased exposure. Mm-hmm. You're going to have people from coast to coast going, what's this Omaha school all about? And people will realize, oh my gosh, it's in a city that has Creighton in it too, and right down the street, the University of Nebraska Lincoln is there. I mean, what a cool situation, and that's what these runs do. And it's proven. You can look at schools that have been off the map, get on the map, and then look at their increased admission application totals. It's a pretty amazing thing, and you mentioned it, Davidson with Steph Curry, and then the first 15-2, if I'm not mistaken, or one of the first was Steve Murfeld at Hampton, and you see the clip where he gets lifted up by one of his players and he starts kicking his feet, And I happened to, I'm kind of like Forrest Gump. I was in Boise, Idaho for that one because that was the last game of the day. They were beat, and same deal. I was like, why is the crowd going nuts? It's Iowa State Hampton. And I was doing a live shot for the station I was working for at the time. And sure enough, it's because 15 beat 2. So it can happen. And one more quick thing about Cinderella. I was there at in Charlotte, North Carolina, standing next to John Fanta, name dropper there. And we watched UMBC knock off Virginia to become the first 16 to beat a 1. Now, it doesn't happen every year. Of course not. It doesn't happen every year. But here's the thing. If you're not in the tournament, it can't happen to you.
Yep.
And now Omaha is in the tournament, and it can happen to them. And that's the beauty of this tournament, is that anything can happen.
Yes. Why aren't you out there then? What are you doing? You kind of gave the good luck.
Sleeping in his own bed.
Well, I can. Yeah. You know what? I can say I was in the studio that day that Omaha knocked off number 2 St. John.
Well, we're hoping that Lauren can come back and say that she was on the court that day when Omaha knocked off St. John's.
Because the game starts after my bedtime.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. It's going to be no sleep for me coming on the show on Friday. Hey, before we get you out of here, Andy Kendeigh of KETV, who's your champion for the NCAA tournament?
I know it's probably going to upset some Creighton fans, but I like Auburn.
Yeah.
I like Auburn versus Duke in the final. I think there's going to be a handful of Cinderella stories going through that first weekend to get to the Sweet 16. But when it's all said and done, it's going to be the big boys at the Final Four. I do like Auburn. I think this is Bruce Pearl's been knocking on the door for a couple of years now. I think this is the year they get it done.
No doubt about it. Good pick. Hey, we'll talk to you soon, Andy. All right.
All right. Thanks, boys. Right. Be good. Have a good week.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Hey. One hell of a show. Caleb Henry joining us in today for Gary Sharp, who is will be back here tomorrow. He will be here for an hour, just talking some shop as Omaha gets
who's
going to
be here
on
tomorrow?
St. John's.
Come on, don't bury a lead. Is it a surprise?
Mr. Jacob Bigelow makes his 16-20 the zone debut. 4 hours of macking bigs. Don't go anywhere. But Caleb Henry will be back here Friday. We'll be breaking down the Omaha and Creighton games. Hey, thank you so much for listening today.
Yes, it's going to be Viagra, the radio show.
Is coming up next.